Thank you. I would like to share with you at this point a short video which we will be sharing on our social media channels after today. It represents, I hope, the bold way in which we will be communicating our position and our values as the largest European political family. This will be the start of a campaign that will evolve and will continue in various ways as we move forward to culminate in the 2024 European elections. It is a campaign that I hope that you all get behind and support in every way you can. Because this is who we are, the guardians of European values, the beacon of Europe. Video, please.
L'Europe ne se fera pas d'un coup, ni dans une construction d'ensemble. Elle se fera par des réalisations concrètes, créant d'abord une solidarité de fait.
The perspective of a Europe whole and free, our vision of humanity and society.
And a Europe which is respecting the interests of the citizens, which is protecting the interests of the citizens, and where people in Europe feel at home in Europe.
Only a Europe that belongs to all Europeans is a strong Europe. Let's open now a new chapter. Who else than us? We are the rock for protecting the security and the future of Europe.
I would like to conclude with the inspirational words of the Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa. Somos do tamanho dos nossos sonhos. We are only as big as our dreams. During these 2 days in Lisbon, we will embark on a journey to continue to a better life of Europeans and shape Europe's future. We have the vision, we have the destination, and we will reach it together. And now I would like to invite EPP President Manfred Weber to take the stage. Mr. President.
Thanasis, thank you so much for welcoming and introducing our today's political assembly. As EPP, dear friends, we are the strongest political party, the strongest political family in the European Union. And we have today our political assembly in Lisbon. We do this in Lisbon now after the Rotterdam Congress, outside of the Brussels, if I may say, bubble, if you allow me to say it this way. We go to the people. We are People's Party. We want to show that Europe is first of all here on the ground, like in all our countries, and not on Brussels level. That is the message behind, and that's why I'm really happy that we have so strong partners here on the ground, in the front runners on local, on regional, and here on national level with us So that's why let's again welcome the two party leaders here in Portugal. It's Nuno Melo and it's Luis Montenegro. Good to have you with us. Welcome. And it's another honor that we have the president of Partido Popular, I can still say new elected president of Partido Popular, among us, a good friend of us. And I would say because the elections are a little bit closer than here in Portugal. In Portugal, we have still a little bit more time to the next national elections, but in Spain, they are very close. That's why let me also express my wish for the future. Let's not only welcome the president of Partido Popular, let's welcome the next Prime Minister of Spain, Alberto Núñez Feijóo. Alberto, good to have you here. Thank you so much for your presence. Dear colleagues, we have a political assembly today to consider what is the state of play. So what is the starting point for the next weeks and months in front of us? Let me first of all use the perspective from a party point of view. How do we do as EPP currently after our Congress in Rotterdam? I want to summarize probably this perspective with the key message that crisis times, and obviously in Europe we are in crisis times, globally we are in crisis times. Crisis times are times for EPP, are times for center-right, for us, for the bridge builders with a clear value base in mind. And this is also proven by the latest developments on national level when we look to the elections. I want to thank our Swedish colleagues. They did a great campaign, our two parties there. And now, dear friends, we have again one prime minister in the EPP ranks more than in the past. Ulf Kristersson won the elections and he is now Prime Minister of Sweden. Congratulations to our Swedish colleagues. A great success, a great outcome for us. We managed in Latvia the re-election of Krišjānis Kariņš with a great outcome. He increased the number of seats from 8 to around 27 or something like this. So a great outcome for our political movement in Latvia. We have in Bulgaria had elections there. In Bulgaria, we are again number one. Boyko Borisov and the team managed to be again the biggest party of Bulgaria. In the Czech Republic, we had elections for the Senate, where EPP, all our EPP parties managed to have a good success against Babiš, if I may say so, with a good outcome there. And then in Slovenia, a few days ago, our friend Andrzej Loga, as former foreign minister of the country, managed to arrive with 46% in the presidential race in the second round with a historic outcome. It was not finally the success which we wanted to see. He was not elected as president, but 46% was for our movement a historic high result in this election. And I can continue, dear friends, we had a lot of positive developments over the last weeks and months. So people trust in what we offer, bridge building, center-right, reasonable politics to answer the challenges of today. And if I may be a little bit optimistic for the next weeks and months in front of us, dear friends, because we all saw that Rotterdam was a moment where we also saw the defeat in Germany, for example, in my country 1 year ago, where we also saw the difficult developments in France and other countries where we were not so strong as we wished to be. But Rotterdam was a starting point for a recovery process of the EPP. And when I look into the future, then I tell you we have a lot of elections in front of us which are very, very promising. We have elections in Cyprus and in Greece. In Greece, I think Kyriakos will manage to be re-elected. There we have a good chance. Also, our Cyprus colleagues are fighting hard to keep the president in our ranks. We have then elections in Finland next year. We have elections in Estonia and in Luxembourg. I see Claude Wiesler with us, also as a strong leader and hopefully a next prime minister of his country. So where we have a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances, and not to forget again about the big countries where in Poland Donald Tusk is fighting tough and our friends there to win against PiS. And I mentioned it already in Spain next autumn, the big elections there. So there is a lot in front of us where we can achieve for our political family a lot. For the number of council members, because on Parliament we have the strongest group, in the Commission we are strong, we have Commission President, and dear friends, when it is about the Council, then I would say we started in Rotterdam with 7 council members. We have already one now with Ulf Kristersson, another one for us, and having the elections in front of us, there's a good chance that finally EPP arrived by around 12, 13, even 14 prime ministers. Leo Varadkar, for example, will take over in Ireland in December. Dear friends, there is a lot of chances in front of us to win again and to come back as the strongest political force also on the council table. I say this because what we need is proudness on our movement, on what EPP is all about. And there were some discussions, and I want to say this also today when we have media with us. I also want to say this publicly. We had some debates about whether it is acceptable, for example, for Ulf Kristersson in Sweden to work together with the Sweden Democrats. There were some discussions about this. And I tell you that we have discussed this among the leaders in the EPP family, among the presidency of the EPP family, and we have to define 3 clear criteria for us, where we can assess what is possible in the cooperation with more conservative voices and what is not possible. Where is the red line which we don't cross? And these 3 criteria are all those partners whom we want to work with have to be pro-European, no doubt about this, have to be pro-Ukraine. In this moment of history, there isn't a gray zone, there is only black and white, whether you are on the right side of history or not. And you have to be pro-rule of law, a basic principle for how we think Europe, rule of law based. We fought in Parliament for rule of law mechanism. We defend this all over Europe. That are the 3 criteria. And if, for example, Ulf Kristersson or Antonio Tajani in Italy is a guarantor for these 3 principles, then a cooperation is possible, and then we will do it. Then we will work for a good center-right perspective of our European Union. And if I may also politically add to this point, dear friends, sometimes I would wish to see that we as EPP politicians are also much more outspoken when it is about what are the leftists doing in this regard. Dear friends, here in this country, it was Kostas who worked together with communists in the previous mandate, who were offensively going against NATO and against NATO membership of people like Finnish and our Swedish friends. It was Alberto in Spain the same, that Podemos, when there was a NATO summit in Madrid taking place, Podemos ministers were not together with us celebrating NATO, they were out in the streets demonstrating against NATO. And dear colleagues, that is what the left is doing. They work together in France. Michel Barnier, for example, the socialists with Mélenchon, who is offensively, openly taking the European legislation into question, an openly spoken anti-European perspective. Also the Greens were supporting him in the race. So that's, dear colleagues, let's be strong on our commitment, on our 3 promises, Europe, rule of law, and Ukraine. But let's also stand up and fight, because the left is much worse when they have to defend rule of law, when they have to defend NATO, when they have to defend the European integration. I want to wish that we are there much more outspoken than we are from time to time. And let me conclude this first perspective from a party political point of view with my proudness that when it is about rule of law, then EPP is today defending rule of law in Europe. It is Donald Tusk in Poland. It is our friends in the Baltic countries. In Slovakia, we will welcome tomorrow Eduard Heger, our friends there, as new member in the EPP family. They fought after the killing of Jan Kuciak for a modern Slovakia, for an uncorrupt Slovakia. It is Klaus Johannes in Romania, and I can continue the list. In Central Eastern European countries, our EPP family is doing the job, not the socialists, not the Greens. We are doing the job, so let's be proud about this. Dear friends, that is the first point I want to mention, this party political perspective. And the second is the content. That is in the interest of our citizens. That is what our people asking us to answer. And there, still, the tragedy of Ukraine, the unprovoked, aggressive war from Putin against the free country of Ukraine is in our mind. We will have tomorrow the chance to discuss this more in substance. We have also a resolution prepared, thanks to our Ukraine friends. We also have Ukraine friends today with us from the Ukraine Parliament. I don't know where they are. Okay. Please, yes, welcome to our Ukraine friends. It's great to have you with us. Full solidarity with our friends there. Your fight is our fight, and Ukraine must win and Putin must lose. That are our main messages. And when we see the military dimension of this conflict now, that you liberated again Kherson in the last days, I can only praise and I can only show respect towards the soldiers of Ukraine, what they did every day in this fight for our values. It's a fight for Ukraine as a country, as a nation, but also a fight for our common values. That's why thank you so much for this. And I have to say that this Kiev momentum is still, and thanks God, still strong in the European Union, that we are united behind our Ukraine friends. So the military side, there we can win. It's not yet sure, but we can win. But there is another dimension whether we win the energy war. So the military war is possible to win, but the energy war, the declared war against us as Europeans as a whole, is not yet clear. And that's why, let me be also politically outspoken on this, that the energy question, the inflation, is the biggest concern for our citizens. Europe together has to give answers. We need joint procurement on the international markets. We need solidarity inside of the European Union to trust each other, to help each other. We need a gas price cap that is to limit the impact of the speculation, the unreasonable speculation on the market, which is increasing the prices so much. And we count and we believe in forming an energy market, because a market on European level would help us a lot to decrease the prices for the citizens. And I have to say that in these answers we describe as EPP, and Esther de Lange will discuss it afterwards in the plenary as well, and we discuss a paper on this. In these answers, I have to say we already had a lost summer, because we were not able on European level to deliver as quick as we should have had done. Dear friends, now the risk is in front of us that we not only had a lost summer, that we also have a lost winter, because on Council side, we are not quick enough, we are not fast enough to deliver on these aspects. So let's try to do our best to manage this. Growth and recession is then another point which is in front of us, because the growth perspective for next year is quite worrisome. The figures are worrisome. And then jobs and economic perspective will again come back on the political agenda. We as EPP, we are in favor of strengthening the single market. That was one of the growth engines of the last decades. We are in favor of a moratorium on additional burden for our industry, for our SMEs, for our farmers. Dear friends, we are in a situation where we have to produce food, and it makes no sense to create additional problems for our farmers that they have to lower the production. What we need is now more food production and not less food production in today's European Union. That's why we fight for a moratorium on new legislative burden on European level. And we have to strengthen trade, dear friends. I had the chance last week to be together with Alberto Nuno Fejo and with Esteban González Pons. We were together in South America, in Argentina and in Chile. And I can only tell you that South America is waiting for us. They told us, please come, please conclude now the Mercosur agreement, the trade agreement between the European Union and South America. Hundreds of millions of people who are very European-minded, who are close to us in their mentality, are waiting for a Europe who is ready to open the doors. So now it's a moment to conclude on the Mercosur agreement. And let me also say a word, Luis, to the internal situation, Nuno Melo, what we have here in Portugal. Because having this economic fear in mind, I would say that the Portuguese government is lacking reforms. So we see a lot of engagement, we see a lot of even internal disputes and sometimes chaotic behavior of the government, but we don't see the necessary reforms here in the country. And the second point linked to Portugal is the investment on the Recovery and Resilience Fund money. The money has the idea to create a green and a digital Europe. That is the idea of the Recovery Fund money. When I see how the Portuguese investment is going on, then I have to say that it is obviously more to compensate the national budgets and the national deficits in the budget. That is not the purpose of this fund. So that's why please use the money for future investment, for creating hope for our young generation. That is the purpose. And dear friends, next to this we also have a growing issue on migration again. We had the dispute between Italy and France in the last days. I would say from an EPP point of view, let's use Greece, where we are governing successfully over the last years. Let's use Greece as a role model for how to manage things. On the one hand, we have to protect our borders, we have to stop illegal migration, and if we don't do so, then people will be not happy with us. That is the obligation, the request from our citizens. So let's be tough on this, let's be clear on this. But on the other hand, we are Christian Democrats. That's why we have to help people in need. In the Mediterranean Sea, everybody has to be rescued, no doubt about this. And we have to work together with Libya and with Turkey and with others who are helping us to manage the migration flows. Show solidarity with those who really need our help. That are the two sides of the medal. And this aspect that we help was proven by the readiness to welcome the refugees from Ukraine all over Europe. Everybody opened the door and we were ready to help. I want to mention finally only 2 points. One is about Schengen, dear friends. There we are in the final talks about the Schengen enlargement. It's only for a few countries important, but for them it's key. It's key. We talk about Croatia, EPP government. We talk about Romania, EPP government, EPP leadership. We talk about Bulgaria, where we are number one, where we are the strongest party. And that's why, dear friends, we have to do, as EPP family, and I really insist in all our national member parties, that in the governmental side, we give green light now for all 3 countries to join the Schengen area. Dear friends, in crisis times, to enlarge the Schengen area is a commitment that we believe in the unity of Europe. That is what we do with the signal to welcome these 3 countries in the Schengen area. So full support for our 3 countries. And then a final point, dear friends. We have to prepare the election campaign 2024. And there, obviously, unity to bring Europe to a next level is our request, is our question on the table. For us, it's obvious that strengthening Europe in external affairs, in defense affairs, is key. We will discuss this here in the future. We will discuss this also among the top leaders in the EPP family when we meet in Athens. So we will have there a strong momentum. But I have to say, being here today in Portugal, close to Spain, that there are other developments which are in a way more worrisome. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has agreed with the pro-independence Catalan movement to amend a law declaring the independence of part of Spain as no longer as a crime. That is what they did now in Spain, what Sánchez proposed in Spain. And dear friends, this is first of all, what I would say, contrary to the Constitution of Spain. That is one aspect. But more importantly, we have worked so hard to unite Europe. That's why let's not break it up now. That is what we have to do as EPP family. That's why, Alberto, your work there is important. This is why I, as an EPP leader, also want to share my concerns about the developments in Spain. We have to unify, we have to unite, we have to bring things together. That is the DNA of EPP, and that is also the DNA of Partido Popular. So, dear friends, thank you so much for being today here in Lisbon. I know it's an effort to come here, to invest the time, to invest the financial resources for doing so. We have a full plenary. Everybody is here. We have a lot of interest by the media. People's Party is strong, is alive, is attractive. Thank you so much for being with us, and let's have good days in Lisbon.
Boa tarde a todas e a todos. Queria começar por saudar todos os participantes desta Assembleia Política, dando-lhes algum tempo para poderem colocar os dispositivos e terem acesso à tradução, mas têm de me perdoar, em Portugal eu tenho que falar a minha língua-mãe. É um privilégio poder receber-vos a todos aqui. Sejam, portanto, muito bem-vindos todos os participantes nesta Assembleia Política e todos os partidos que aqui estão representados. Quero agradecer de uma forma muito especial ao Presidente do Partido Popular Europeu, Manfred Weber, meu estimado amigo, e também ao Secretário-Geral, o facto de terem escolhido Lisboa como local onde se realiza o primeiro evento externo desde o último congresso do PPE. É para nós uma honra e estou em condições de poder dizer que nós vamos retribuir a honra que nos dão sempre com o nosso empenho, com a nossa intervenção em favor dos valores da Europa e em favor dos valores do Partido Popular Europeu. O PSD, como sabem, é um partido europeísta e é um partido fortemente comprometido com os trabalhos do Partido Popular Europeu nas suas mais variadas frentes, do Parlamento Europeu à Comissão Europeia e, naturalmente, aos nossos representantes no Conselho Europeu. Creio que nós, no PSD, interpretamos também muito bem aquele que é o sentimento dominante da sociedade portuguesa. Somos europeístas por convicção, mas também somos europeístas porque representamos a vontade popular mais livre e democraticamente expressa em sucessivas eleições que se realizaram no nosso país. Quero também dizer-vos que esta nova etapa que iniciámos no PSD em Portugal vai corresponder a este espírito de colaboração com a direção do PPE e, como eu já tive a ocasião de dizer na última cimeira de líderes do PPE, nós vamos dar ao PPE, nas próximas eleições legislativas, um novo Primeiro-Ministro ao Partido Popular Europeu na Europa. Como sabem, a pandemia e a guerra fizeram renascer na União Europeia um espírito de solidariedade como há muito tempo nós não vivíamos neste projeto de construção que se iniciou há algumas décadas. É nossa convicção no PSD que este espírito de solidariedade que a Europa foi capaz de reconstruir e reerguer nos últimos anos, com a situação pandémica primeiro e agora com a situação de guerra, se deve estender àquelas que são as matérias mais importantes hoje para as pessoas. Como disse o Manfred Weber, este é o partido das pessoas. E as pessoas na Europa, como as pessoas em Portugal hoje, estão a sofrer na pele as agruras, os efeitos de uma inflação inesperada na dimensão e inesperada no tempo de duração. E o Partido Popular Europeu tem de estar na frente daquilo que é a procura de soluções comuns e solidárias de todos os Estados-membros da União Europeia para que as famílias, as empresas, as instituições de cada Estado-membro possam beneficiar de políticas comuns que possam obviar as dificuldades que este processo de aumento dos preços e, em particular, dos preços dos bens essenciais está a provocar. Os povos europeus, as famílias europeias, as empresas europeias precisam mais do que nunca da nossa contribuição e, dentro desta contribuição, há uma área que é especialmente importante, a área da energia. Quero, a esse respeito, dizer sem tibiezas e com frontalidade que o Partido Popular Europeu não pode deixar de exigir a execução das interconexões energéticas entre a Península Ibérica e a França. E dentro destas, não pode deixar de exigir o cumprimento dos compromissos já assumidos em 2014 a propósito das interconexões elétricas que atravessam os Pirineus e que poderão ser uma fonte que dá autonomia energética à Europa e que colabora para o cumprimento das metas ambientais que nós todos nos propusemos atingir no nosso continente. Os governos socialistas de Portugal e de Espanha juntaram-se com o presidente francês Macron para uma operação de pura cosmética política. A Europa não precisa, nem a Península Ibérica precisa, de mais fotografias, de mais cimeiras, de mais música para os nossos ouvidos. Nós não precisamos de mais palavras, Nós precisamos de ação. Nós precisamos que a Europa, os Estados-membros envolvidos, Portugal, Espanha, França, a Comissão Europeia, cumpram aquilo que já está escrito desde 2014 e que já está assinado desde 2015, incluindo as fontes de financiamento deste projeto. Repito, este projeto não é só estratégico para Portugal e para a Espanha. Este projeto é estratégico para a Europa. É estratégico para que a Europa não volte a cometer erros como aquele que esteve envolto o processo Nord Stream 2. Esse sim foi um erro estratégico. Estas interconexões são a aposta que visa garantir o futuro em termos de autonomia da Europa e em termos de cumprimento das metas ambientais. Quero também dizer a todos, em nome do Partido Social Democrata, que me parece que o Partido Popular Europeu também não pode deixar de ter na sua ação política uma especial atenção para a recuperação económica que todos temos como desafio para os próximos anos, depois precisamente da época da pandemia e da guerra que atravessamos e do processo inflacionista que está em curso. E sobre isto, eu queria dizer, aliás, na esteira do que disse há pouco o Presidente Weber, que é importante que as instituições europeias acompanhem a execução dos programas de recuperação económica e de todo o financiamento que está à disposição dos Estados-membros, repito, para a recuperação económica dos países e para a recuperação económica das empresas. E digo isto porque em Portugal, infelizmente, esses recursos financeiros estão, por um lado, excessivamente vocacionados para a esfera do investimento público, às vezes mesmo para suprir as deficientes dotações para as despesas correntes da administração pública portuguesa, em vez de estarem direcionados, como deviam, para a criação de riqueza, para a recuperação da economia, para a recuperação do tecido económico, que o mesmo é dizer das pequenas e das médias empresas. Aquelas que estão a sofrer precisamente o aumento do preço das matérias-primas e o aumento dos custos da energia. É bom que todos nós possamos colaborar e cooperar uns com os outros. E por isso eu quero aqui dizer de uma forma também clara que, a esse propósito, nós temos 3 problemas em Portugal. O primeiro problema é que a execução deste programa está muito atrasada. É baixíssima. O segundo problema é, como vos disse, ele está sobretudo direcionado para a parte pública, em vez de estar direcionado para o investimento privado. E, em terceiro lugar, há ainda um outro problema, que é a falta de articulação do Programa de Recuperação Económica com os fundos de coesão 2030. Há uma deficiente articulação entre esses 2 instrumentos e, naturalmente, que nós achamos que o Partido Popular Europeu deve acompanhar com muita proximidade este assunto. De resto, em Portugal, o assunto é tão importante que o próprio Presidente da República já várias vezes tem alertado o Governo precisamente para essa questão. Depois, deixava-vos um outro ponto de reflexão. Nos últimos dias, em Portugal, veio a público uma polémica a propósito de pretensas intromissões do poder político, do Primeiro-Ministro, diretamente, no âmbito da atuação do Banco Central, do Banco de Portugal, e, portanto, uma intromissão que atenta contra a independência do Banco Central. O Sr. Primeiro-Ministro português, António Costa, confrontado com a situação, que está vertida numa publicação, num livro, em que o ex-governador do Banco de Portugal conta vários episódios da sua relação com o governo português, o Sr. Primeiro-Ministro limitou-se a negar essa intromissão e a remeter para um processo judicial que vai mover contra o governador o dirimir desse diferendo. Só que, minhas amigas e meus amigos, uma coisa é aquilo que o Sr. Primeiro-Ministro português, António Costa, tem para dirimir com o ex-governador do Banco de Portugal, também ele Costa, Carlos Costa. Isso podem fazer nos tribunais. Mas há uma questão política que nós não temos de esperar pelos tribunais para poder aferir. Em primeiro lugar, é saber se houve ou não houve essa intromissão. E em segundo lugar, porque isso tem a ver com o funcionamento das instituições europeias, é que nesse mesmo escrito, o ex-governador do Banco de Portugal, com documentação que também juntou às suas palavras, denuncia que, em 2015, perante um processo de venda de uma instituição bancária portuguesa que estava em curso, o governo português estava já a dialogar com as instituições europeias com vista à resolução dessa instituição bancária. E o facto de ter vindo a público que o governo português estava a fazer essas diligências na Europa, fizeram com que o valor do banco diminuísse de forma abrupta e que ele, em vez de ter sido vendido, tenha sido, por assim dizer, oferecido àquele que veio a ser o titular que lhe veio a suceder em termos de propriedade. E isto tem também a ver com as necessidades que eu aqui quero deixar-vos, de que nas instituições europeias é preciso que haja transparência, é preciso que haja também uma colaboração para nós todos sabermos a verdade. E para que não aconteça, como muitas vezes acontece, que são os dirigentes governativos dos Estados-membros terem uma verdade quando falam dentro dos seus territórios e terem outra verdade quando vão a Bruxelas ou a Frankfurt fazer algumas reuniões. Eu sei que isto toca a todos e sei que todos aqueles que estão na oposição sentem isto de uma forma mais evidente do que aqueles que estão no governo. Não desconheço isso. Já fui líder parlamentar do meu partido quando estávamos no governo e acompanhei muito do diálogo que o governo de Portugal tinha de ter, cotidiano, ainda para mais com uma intervenção externa, com as instituições europeias. Mas eu gostava de juntar àquilo que disse o Manfred Weber a propósito da ausência total do governo português em promover reformas estruturais. A ausência é essa que os órgãos e as instituições europeias não têm denunciado, e isso diz alguma coisa sobre a forma como as instituições europeias estão a lidar com a situação atual. Independentemente das tarefas mais imediatas, nós não devemos esquecer-nos das questões estratégicas, estruturantes e estruturais para o nosso futuro. E eu há muito tempo que não ouço a Comissão Europeia estar muito preocupada com isso. Eu quero terminar dizendo-vos o seguinte: nós somos o partido das pessoas. Nós somos o partido que visa garantir a solidariedade entre os povos e garantir a solidariedade entre os países. Não devemos ser o partido que colabora com alguns entendimentos apenas dos representantes dos respectivos governos. Queria terminar desejando a todos muito bom trabalho, cumprimentando o Dr. Nuno Melo, que é presidente do CDS e deputado no Parlamento Europeu, e também um partido, além de nosso amigo, integrante do Partido Popular Europeu. Também cumprimentar mais uma vez o nosso vizinho e futuro presidente do governo espanhol, assim esperamos, Alberto Núñez Feijóo. Desejar-vos muito bom trabalho e repetir esta ideia. A Europa precisa da solidariedade entre os povos e entre os países. Não precisa dos arranjos entre primeiros-ministros ou chefes de governo. Muito obrigado.
Buenas tardes a todos. Querido amigo, presidente del Partido Popular Europeo, Manfred Weber. Querido presidente del Partido Popular Portugués y anfitrión Luis Montenegro, amigo y vecino. Felicidades por esta iniciativa de convocar a todos los colegas del Partido Popular Europeo en esta preciosa ciudad del Atlántico, en Lisboa. Querida comisaria, queridos colegas, ante una asamblea política como la que hoy nos reúne, creo que cabe reiterar lo que es Europa. El vídeo que introdujo esta asamblea acredita lo que somos. Europa es una geografía, una historia de muchos siglos, lenguas y culturas, y también un modelo económico y una excepcional construcción política. Europa, en efecto, es todo eso, pero sobre todo Europa son unos valores. Valores forjados durante muchos siglos y en los que hay influencias dispares. Todas ellas desembocan en una fundamental, en la idea de la libertad, y comprende todas sus facetas sin excluir ninguna. Esa libertad que nos distingue no pertenece en exclusiva al Partido Popular Europeo, pero sí es cierto que tiene en el Partido Popular Europeo uno de los baluartes más firmes. Y le agradezco mucho a la presencia de Monsieur Barnier, porque sin duda es uno de los baluartes del Partido Popular Europeo. Nos equivocaríamos si pensásemos que esa libertad es un logro que no tiene marcha atrás. Los tiempos que vivimos nos enfrentan a un serio desafío que tiene dos antagonistas. En primer lugar, el populismo. El populismo y la importancia del populismo en los países miembros de la Unión Europea. Y en segundo lugar, la guerra a las puertas de la Unión Europea. El objetivo del populismo es socavar no ya las instituciones, sino también la confianza de los ciudadanos en las instituciones. No es la primera vez, como digo, que esa amenaza se cierne sobre las democracias representativas. Igual que en otras ocasiones, aprovecha el desconcierto que crean las crisis económicas para propagar la idea de que nuestro sistema de convivencia no es el idóneo para sacar adelante las propias crisis europeas. Debemos, queridos colegas, de ser firmes en la respuesta. No es que la democracia sea el sistema más idóneo, no. La democracia es el único sistema idóneo. Nuestra convicción se basa en la experiencia y la convicción de que el populismo es un camino equivocado se basa en reiterados fracasos. Me gustaría poner dos ejemplos de lo que ha ocurrido en la política de mi país, en la política española, en los últimos días. Estamos viviendo en España las dramáticas consecuencias de una decisión populista tomada por nuestro Gobierno en contra del criterio de los expertos, en contra del Partido Popular Europeo, en contra de los jueces, en contra, en definitiva, del sentido común. La entrada en vigor de la conocida ley del sí es sí ha provocado un goteo constante de presos condenados por delitos sexuales que hayan visto reducidas sus condenas y que incluso algunos hayan sido liberados de inmediato. No ha sido una sorpresa, porque es algo, insisto, que veníamos advirtiendo antes de la aprobación de la ley, que advirtió el órgano de los jueces antes de la aprobación de la ley y también las principales asociaciones feministas españolas. Las consecuencias, como digo, están siendo dramáticas y, lejos de rectificar, el Gobierno ha arremetido contra los jueces, a los que ha calificado de fachas con toga o incluso les ha calificado como un colectivo machista. Conviene recordar que la mayoría de jueces y magistrados en España son juezas y magistrados. El presidente Sánchez tiene que decidir si la responsabilidad última de esta desprotección de las niñas, de las adolescentes y de las mujeres españolas es de la ministra de Igualdad o de la ministra de Justicia o de las dos a la vez, o directamente asumir él toda la responsabilidad, ya que ha sido el Consejo de Ministros el que ha adoptado y aprobado este proyecto de ley. Del mismo modo, debe de pronunciarse si está dispuesto a ceder ante los independentistas y reducir las penas a los corruptos que malversan fondos públicos, como está haciendo al eliminar el delito de sedición y desarmando así la democracia española. Estamos ante una muestra más de la debilidad del Gobierno, que cede ante la exigencia del populismo y del independentismo, facilitando que una parte de nuestro país pueda separarse de España y, por tanto, de la Unión Europea. Y por eso le agradezco tanto al presidente Manfred Weber ese compromiso del Partido Popular Europeo con la Constitución española y con la integridad del territorio nacional. Estoy convencido de que frente a todo ello, la democracia es la respuesta idónea. En primer lugar, porque permite y obliga a que quienes adopten decisiones las puedan rectificar, y porque además la democracia es el único sistema que permite asumir responsabilidades, dado que son los ciudadanos los que pueden, a través de la democracia, cambiar a los gobiernos que ejecutan estas decisiones. En la España actual, los populismos y el independentismo de extrema izquierda está llevando a nuestro país a una crisis, en mi opinión, a una de las crisis más profundas que hemos conocido en la democracia española desde la transición. Esas fuerzas, el independentismo y el populismo, es verdad que existían desde que se inauguró la democracia española, aunque la influencia que tienen hoy en los destinos de mi país carece de precedentes. No es que el respaldo del pueblo español haya sido creciente extraordinariamente en favor de estas fuerzas. No es que los españoles se hayan convertido de repente en radicales o extremistas. No, no es eso. La explicación hay que buscarla en la abdicación de uno de los grandes partidos que sustentaba la centralidad en la política española. Llevado por un liderazgo radical, el Partido Socialista ha abandonado su personalidad anterior para ser cómplice de una deriva que pone en riesgo la división de poderes y la unidad del Estado. Esto realmente es grave, pero lo peor es que se intente agitar a la sociedad española con debates y con polémicas que nos alejan de los problemas más acuciantes, al tiempo que fragmentan la unidad territorial de nuestro país y la unidad social de nuestro país. España hoy es un exponente de la amenaza populista, pero estoy convencido que los españoles votarán libremente y cambiarán ese gobierno. Y, por tanto, España también es la oportunidad, junto con Portugal, de unir al continente latinoamericano con la Unión Europea. Agradezco otra vez al presidente Weber que nos acompañase y estuviésemos juntos en el periplo latinoamericano de la próxima semana, en Argentina y en Ecuador, en Chile y en Uruguay. Precisamente ha sido la idea central del viaje defender que América Latina ha de ser un socio absolutamente prioritario para la Unión Europea. No podemos dejar que la desidia europea provoque una pérdida de interés en América Latina de Europa, o que nuestra inacción provoque que otros países, como Estados Unidos o China, sustituyan nuestras relaciones en Latinoamérica. Les aseguro que en esta gira hemos comprobado que muchos de los desafíos entre los países latinoamericanos y los países de la Unión Europea son los mismos. A ambos lados del Atlántico hemos de revitalizar el crecimiento económico. A ambos lados del Atlántico debemos de fortalecer nuestras instituciones nacionales y supranacionales. A ambos lados del Atlántico debemos de luchar contra el populismo y a ambos lados del Atlántico debemos de reforzar nuestra posición estratégica. Y en el marco en el que las incertezas son tan profundas, las alianzas tienen que ser más sólidas. Y, por supuesto, también nuestra economía. Y por eso hemos defendido el avance de la Unión Europea en el cierre del acuerdo con Mercosur. Estamos hablando de 4 países, de Brasil, de Argentina, de Uruguay, de Paraguay. Estamos hablando de un acuerdo que favorecería el intercambio económico entre 750 millones de ciudadanos. Estamos hablando de un acuerdo que afectaría a 31 países y que supondría el 25% del PIB mundial. Creo firmemente que Portugal y que España deben de convencer a la Unión Europea para firmar ese acuerdo y unir definitivamente el Atlántico mediante ese puente económico y ese puente social entre Latinoamérica y la Unión Europea. Y quisiera tratar el segundo punto, junto con la importancia del populismo en algunos países de la Unión Europea, está la agresión bélica contra un país europeo que no quiere perder la libertad. La invasión rusa pone de relieve la superioridad de los valores europeos de los que hablábamos. La Rusia de Putin recurre a la fuerza al carecer de argumentos políticos capaces de generar una simpatía de los ucranianos hacia Moscú. Tenemos ahí la prueba de que los valores que defendemos están plenamente vigentes, hasta el punto de que hay mujeres y hombres que hoy están muriendo por ellos. Haríamos bien en no olvidarlo. Él es nuestra frontera con el autoritarismo y, en consecuencia, las dudas sobre el apoyo a Ucrania no son comprensibles. La defensa de la libertad es en ocasiones fatigosa. He ahí la propia construcción europea también es un proceso laborioso. Pero entiendo que estos valores no se defienden solos. La extensión de estas reflexiones solo me permite esbozar consideraciones que afectan a la defensa militar y a la energía. Europa ha de traducir su indudable poder económico, social y cultural en una fortaleza militar. El contexto actual obliga a contemplar 3 ejes. El primero, seguir haciendo de la OTAN una organización vigorosa de países libres. El segundo, estrechar vínculos con la democracia estadounidense y, al mismo tiempo, no descuidar los intereses estratégicos específicamente europeos como los relativos a la cuenca mediterránea o a Latinoamérica que antes citaba. En cuanto al suceso que nos conmocionó hace unas horas, según las primeras conclusiones, parece que lo que anteayer ocurrió en Polonia fue un desgraciado accidente. Pero que haya sido un accidente no es alivio, ni sirve para pensar que ya el peligro ha dejado de existir, porque nos engañaríamos a nosotros mismos. El mismo día en que 2 misiles cayeron sobre el terreno polaco, otros 100 misiles, digo bien, 100 misiles, cayeron sobre el suelo ucraniano, 4 misiles cada hora, durante 24 horas. Y desde que comenzó la guerra, el pasado 24 de febrero han muerto más de 6.500 ciudadanos ucranianos y más de 10.000 han sido heridos. Estas son las cifras a día 14 que facilitó la Oficina de Naciones Unidas para los Derechos Humanos. Por eso, desde aquí quiero mandar 3 mensajes al pueblo polaco y a todos los pueblos de Finlandia, de Estonia, de Letonia, de Rumanía, de la República Checa, de Hungría, en definitiva, de los países más próximos. Primero, la solidaridad española con el pueblo ucraniano ni se va a resentir ni se va a reducir. La segunda, la seguridad de España también se juega en la frontera de Polonia y en los países a los que acabo de hacer referencia, y por eso nuestra sentida solidaridad al Partido Popular de Polonia. Y el Gobierno español debe ser consciente de que este no es un tiempo de funambulismos ideológicos para contentar a sus socios, como refería el presidente del partido. España, miembro de la Unión Europea y de la Alianza Atlántica, debe estar preparada ante cualquier escenario que se pueda producir. Y en cuanto a la energía, parece claro que está estrechamente ligada a la libertad. La lección que es preciso aprender tras los últimos acontecimientos es que la libertad política no es posible sin una soberanía energética europea. La razón es tan simple como brutal. Determinados países que no comparten nuestros valores democráticos han convertido la energía en un arma más. En un arma más, ¿acaso? Una de las armas más importantes. Coincido con mi colega portugués en que la interconexión ibérica con la Unión Europea ha vuelto a ser aplazada sine die. Una vez más, digan lo que digan, la interconexión ibérica no tiene ni fechas, ni presupuesto, ni concreción. Finalizo ya, queridos colegas. La familia de los populares europeos tiene la gran responsabilidad de dar respuesta a una Europa que formula nuevas preguntas. Contamos con un extenso repertorio de experiencia en la que inspirarnos para hacer lo que siempre hemos hecho, estar en la primera línea de la defensa de la libertad política, en la vertebración y cohesión social y en la vanguardia económica, sin que ello suponga desoír las quejas que se producen como consecuencia de la crisis. No podemos dejar a aquellos sectores afectados por la crisis a que se sientan desplazados por la globalización en manos de los populismos. Han de saber que nosotros caminamos y que nosotros transitamos el camino que huye de la retórica radical, pero que es más eficaz y más solidario. He ahí un reto para el que creo que estamos suficientemente preparados, porque todas las crisis de la Unión Europea han sido resueltas por el Partido Popular Europeo. Y en este momento la crisis europea no ha disminuido, sino que en algunos países se está incrementando. Querido Luis Montenegro, Portugal y España, seguiremos trabajando juntos para fortalecer nuestros países, para fortalecer la península ibérica, porque fortaleciendo a la península ibérica estamos fortaleciendo la Unión Europea. Nada más y muchas gracias.
Dear friends, welcome. Dear Manfred, dear Thanasis, welcome and thank you. Caro Alberto Núñez Feijó, enhorabuena. Meu querido amigo Luís Montenegro, um abraço. Já tivemos muitas lutas pela frente a combater os socialismos em Portugal. Acredito que teremos ainda outras tantas pela frente. Dear friends, I hope that you will understand. Being in Portugal, I will have to speak in Portuguese. So I will give you a few seconds just to put your headphones on. And now I'll start. Cara Esteban, saudades. O Partido Popular Europeu reúne a sua Assembleia Política em Lisboa, bem ao ocidente, no sul da Europa, e eu devo dizer que, em boa hora, assim o faz. Portugal, percebam, não é periférico. Portugal representa a centralidade perfeita na confluência da Europa com a África e com a América. É o ponto de contacto de muitos mundos que terão a ocasião de testemunhar na arquitetura, na cultura, na gastronomia. Sejam, por isso, muito bem-vindos e para lá deste momento político, mais logo, desfrutem. Para aqui estar, o Partido Popular Europeu saiu de Bruxelas.
Politicamente, este é também um sinal muito importante. O Partido Popular Europeu sai para a rua e vai ao encontro das pessoas. É assim que se faz política. Precisamos de mais Europa e menos Bruxelas, na expressão feliz de Carl Bildt. A nossa riqueza não está num padrão decidido em Bruxelas. A nossa riqueza está no mosaico. A nossa riqueza está na diversidade que encontramos da Finlândia até a Itália ou Espanha, da França até à Grécia, em cada um dos países da União Europeia que cada um de vós aqui também representam. Abrindo-se a todos, o PPE será mais forte. E sejamos claros, a União Europeia precisa de um PPE forte. O PPE, não tenho dúvida, é o único partido que percebe a importância de uma política de contas certas, mas que é assente em valores e que, ao mesmo tempo, tem preocupações sociais. Essa é a grande diferença da nossa família política. Nós somos muito diferentes dos socialismos, e refiro-me aos socialismos todos, que normalmente os socialismos têm um problema com as contas certas, acreditam que os bolsos dos contribuintes não têm fundo e, de cada vez que governam, no final do ciclo legam aos vindouros o descalabro das finanças públicas e dificuldades para as famílias e para as empresas. Tem sido sempre assim. Que a presença de Alberto Núñez Feijóo, Presidente do Partido Popular Europeu, Partido Popular Espanhol, junto do Luís Montenegro, Presidente do Partido Social Democrata, e já agora de mim próprio, que presido ao CDS, possa ser prenúncio do melhor de outros tempos, quando muito mais PPE governava mais países na Europa. Eu recordo, memory is important in politics, eu recordo que os nossos partidos governaram e salvaram Portugal e Espanha da bancarrota que os socialistas tinham deixado. E não posso, a propósito, deixar de recordar o extraordinário trabalho de Mariano Rajoy, de Pedro Passos Coelho e de Paulo Portas em Espanha e em Portugal. Meus amigos, esta Assembleia Política acontece quando as nuvens negras da guerra pairam sobre a Europa. Isto acontece na sequência de uma invasão da Ucrânia pela Rússia, com uma violência que assassina civis e destrói cidades, com métodos bárbaros e medievais, que julgaríamos improváveis em pleno século XXI, por ser suposto que a humanidade soubesse aprender com os erros do passado. Eu quero saudar a coragem e a resistência do povo ucraniano e apoiar expressamente a decisão da União Europeia e já agora dos Estados Unidos da América de apoiarem com equipamento e armas defensivas, suporte logístico e humanitário a luta deste povo pela sua liberdade e pela integridade territorial do país. Dear friends, members of the Ukrainian Parliament, with us here today, thank you. You are fighting for our values. You are fighting for our way of life. Thank you. Meus amigos, esta guerra no continente europeu, em pleno século XXI, permite-nos tirar várias lições. Primeira lição. É condição para a paz ter uma defesa sólida. É condição para a paz ter uma defesa sólida. Os europeus não se podem convencer ingenuamente de uma ideia de paz perpétua que dispensa forças armadas competentes e equipadas. A Europa percebeu, agora, que a nossa fraqueza é um incentivo para as tentações dos ditadores. Segunda lição. A NATO é o melhor sistema de defesa coletivo para proteger a nossa segurança. Não tenho disso qualquer dúvida. Os que apostavam que a NATO estava fora de prazo e perder a validade, precipitaram-se. Exatamente por isso, reforçar a NATO é garantir a paz e a liberdade dos europeus. Terceira lição. O vínculo transatlântico ganhou uma nova vida. Porque o ataque de Putin é um ataque às democracias que detesta e ao nosso sistema de valores. É por isso que também digo, o vínculo com os Estados Unidos da América mantém-se absolutamente estratégico no plano geopolítico. Quarta lição. Não há independência interna com absoluta dependência externa de energia. Esta crise mostrou que 15 países da União Europeia tinham um excesso de dependência no fornecimento russo de gás e de petróleo. A energia passou a tema político de primeira grandeza, convenhamos. E ficamos com a certeza de que não é boa ideia depender em demasia de uma só fonte. Pelo contrário, já que há dependências, é importante conseguirmos diversificar essas dependências. Mas atenção, com a crise dos preços à solta, com uma inflação galopante, com riscos no fornecimento, parece-me, não é tempo para proclamações ideológicas num tema tão sensível como o tema da energia. O tema da energia exige também, independentemente das metas que queremos atingir, algum pragmatismo. Já agora, eu ouvia o Luís Montenegro que introduziu o tema, eu devo dizer que concordo totalmente. Já agora, a este propósito, nós temos que dizer que os socialistas espanhóis e portugueses tentam agora transformar um fracasso numa vitória. É isto que tentam, transformar um fracasso numa vitória. O acordo com a França para a construção de um gasoduto não prevê a concretização da interconexão para a eletricidade que os governos do PSD e do CDS em Portugal e do Partido Popular em Espanha tinham conseguido em 2014. Significa que com os socialistas a Península Ibérica vai permanecer uma ilha no que respeita à eletricidade. Isto tem que ser dito para que a propaganda não prevaleça sobre a verdade. Meus amigos, antes de querermos mais Europa, nós precisamos de melhor Europa. Nós precisamos de construir melhor Europa. Isto significa a capacidade do Partido Popular Europeu continuar a ser um partido que dá respostas concretas para problemas concretos. É para isto que os partidos políticos existem. Nós temos de dar respostas para as pessoas que neste momento têm dificuldade de alimentar as famílias porque a inflação disparou. Em Portugal, há neste momento 4,2 milhões de pessoas no limiar da pobreza. O IVA zero, temporariamente, dos bens alimentares, foi uma ideia do PPE. E foi uma ideia do PPE pensada para dar respostas concretas a um problema concreto. Nós temos de saber defender a classe média. A classe média que está esmagada por parcelas cada vez maiores de impostos que reduzem o rendimento disponível a valores ridículos. Em Portugal, 16%, pay attention, em Portugal, 16% das famílias pagam 80% dos impostos sobre o trabalho. E 1/3 da população paga os restantes 20%. Devemos dizer uma coisa. Esta é uma marca profundamente injusta e perversa do socialismo. Esta é a marca de governações socialistas falhadas. Nós temos de encontrar soluções para as pessoas que são expulsas para fora das cidades, porque os centros dessas cidades passam a pertencer a fundos imobiliários anónimos que especulam os preços e arrendar ou comprar casa passa por isso a ser impossível para a maior parte das pessoas que nasceram nessas cidades. O Partido Popular Europeu preocupa-se com as pessoas. Logo, tem que se preocupar com isto. Nós temos de ajudar os empresários que insistem em produzir na Europa, mas são obrigados a competir no mercado interno com empresas asiáticas que distorcem regras de concorrência, porque não têm os mesmos custos sociais, ambientais, laborais, principalmente no sul da Europa. Não tanto na Alemanha ou na França, mas seguramente no sul da Europa. A consequência é o dumping que impõe margens de lucro ridículas às empresas e a impossibilidade de muitas pagarem salários decentes. E nós queremos um modelo social justo, coisa que neste momento não acontece. Nós temos de perceber que é imoral que muitas mulheres, por serem mulheres, sejam forçadas a receber salários mais reduzidos que os homens fazendo o mesmo trabalho. Não é justo. Nós temos de compreender a revolta dos jovens que são obrigados a, nomeadamente Portugal, ir trabalhar para os países mais ricos do centro da Europa, porque, apesar de muito qualificados, nos seus países de origem, os salários são ridículos. Em Portugal, 77% dos jovens recebem salários entre 414 euros e 1.158 euros. Isto é profundamente injusto e desmotivante. Nós temos de estar na vanguarda das soluções de mobilidade, de transição energética e ambiental, que são mais importantes para grandes fatias da população do que todas as discussões doutrinárias do nosso tempo, do meu tempo, na verdade, do passado. Já agora, this was not on my speech, but I have to say it. I remember it while I was listening to the other speakers. Não podemos aceitar que o Estado de Direito seja grosseiramente violado e não podemos aceitar que o Estado de Direito seja violado em Portugal, onde, neste momento, os socialistas no governo tentam que os gabinetes da Europol e da Interpol fiquem sob dependência de um secretário-geral de uma entidade que depende diretamente do Primeiro-Ministro, podendo nisso conhecer as próprias investigações criminais. O que aqui temos é uma violação grosseira do Estado de Direito, à qual eu tenho a certeza o PPE continuará a estar muito atento. E porque o tempo vai longo, vou passar à frente o que tinha mais para lhes dizer, porque acho que devemos passar para a conversa ali, dizendo-lhes apenas que espero que possamos ter uma grande jornada de trabalho. Levem do meu país, que é um país maravilhoso, as melhores recordações. Acreditem que estamos genuinamente felizes por os ter aqui. Viva o Partido Popular Europeu, viva a União Europeia. Muito obrigado.
Is this microphone working? Yes, yes.
No, no.
So please. So dear colleagues, after this first round of speakers from a Portuguese-Spanish point of view, it's our DNA that we are not only listening, we are also discussing. Having in mind that we lost a little bit of time already, I would not do first a moderated round here in front of you. I directly want to give the floor to all participants to show up. And that's why I keep in a way standing and looking into the eyes, whether there are some further questions, some reflections, also contributions. So it's not only about questioning things, but also contributing to the starting debate. So who wants to be the first? We need an icebreaker, please. Can we provide a microphone, please?
This one's could be working, right?
Please.
Thank you. My name is Vanna Klemper-Sensaza. I represent European Solidarity Party in the Ukrainian Parliament. And I wanted to use this opportunity to actually thank all people of the European nations that they have been rendering support to Ukraine, and obviously people of Portugal, and all the politicians that have been supporting this cause. We appreciate that, but we also know that this is, at this point, still not enough. And I would really like to make sure that maybe today, at the EPP Political Assembly, we are taking additional attempt to reflect of what particular our European family of political parties could do in order to ensure that support to those Ukrainians who are really standing there, as you're all saying, standing there and fighting for the values that many, unfortunately, across Europe are taking for granted, what we can do more in order to support Ukrainians. Unfortunately, people continuously are dying, and those numbers that have been announced here, these are UN agency numbers, but they are only those ones that are confirmed on the territory that is controlled by Kyiv. Unfortunately, the numbers are in hundreds, or in tens of thousands and in hundreds of thousands. And only today it was announced that 991 bodies were found on just recently liberated territories, and we are opening new mass graves. So this on the top of everything that is happening with the energy attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure from the Russian Federation at these days definitely, unfortunately, has impact not exclusively on Ukraine. It has impact on all those domestic issues of importance that you have been putting here for discussion. And I think that that means that more support, including the weaponry, has to be delivered to Ukraine. And I would really like all of our political parties making sure that we are the ones that are pushing this issue both in the governments and from the political opposition. Air defense is allowing to protect our civilian infrastructure and civilians, and weapons, including tanks, including artillery, including multiple rocket launch systems, are allowing for the Ukrainian armed forces to liberate additional territories. So we are hoping for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution, and thanks again for being today with us, investing all of the time to come to Lisbon. We will have on the table tomorrow a resolution proposed also by our Ukrainian friends, mainly initiated by former President Poroshenko and other friends, where we express exactly what you say, that we clarify this again from an EPP point of view. And I want even to go one step further. I think, Andrei, we had the discussion about the reality which we face in the region, and that is that Russia is a terrorist regime. It's obvious that this is the case, and we should name it like this. So what they are doing is terrorism, and not anymore a normal war situation. So that's why let's be clear, let's be outspoken, let's be united on these issues. Thank you so much. May I look into the eyes of further requests for the floor? Please show up. Maria, please. There is a microphone in front of you, yes.
Thank you very much. I want to make a comment on energy. That is something that I have been working for many years. It's very important, and many of your speech showed the importance of having an internal market of energy, and also to have technologies that we have clean, affordable energy for all. But I want to take the advantage of having the leaders of the Iberian Peninsula to add one argument, that is, for many years, Iberian Peninsula had the problem of not having enough cheap energy for attracting industry. Now we can be one of the places in Europe and in the world that have more access to clean, affordable energy because of our potential for renewables. So we should attract, to keep our industry and attract more industry, to be the producers of renewable ammonia, renewable fertilizers, to attract the steel industry that is abundant in Europe, the cement, the ceramic, the glass, to keep them here. So that is an opportunity for industrialize the Iberian Peninsula again, to keep the one that we have, to industrialize it again. Of course, it's important to export, to be solidary with the rest of Europe, but also a big opportunity to create jobs and economic development in our two countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Then probably a third question, then. That is not the case. Then I would, Michel Barnier, please, Michel.
Thank you, Manfred. If I may, I will switch to French. D'abord, juste un mot personnel pour dire que je suis, pour beaucoup de raisons, très heureux de me retrouver avec vous et de représenter ici mon parti qui est en grande difficulté en France. Mais la présidente par intérim m'a demandé de la représenter, donc je suis très heureux de retrouver mes amis du PPE, chacune de vos délégations. Et j'en profite aussi, puisque je n'ai pas eu l'occasion de le faire plus tôt, de remercier chacune et chacun d'entre vous, la présidence, Manfred en particulier, mais aussi les parlementaires et les délégations nationales pour leur confiance, votre confiance tout au long de cette très longue négociation que j'ai eu l'honneur de conduire avec le Brexit. Donc, je voulais juste prolonger la réflexion de notre ami d'Ukraine pour naturellement confirmer que nous sommes totalement solidaires dans ces moments tragiques. Néanmoins, il s'agit d'une guerre, il s'agit de sécurité, il s'agit de la paix. Et on sait bien qu'il faut toujours préparer la paix par un effort militaire. Et donc je voudrais prolonger la discussion que j'ai eue, Manfred, avec toi plusieurs fois et avec Thanasis il y a quelques jours. Nous allons devoir construire ou consolider le corpus idéologique de notre famille politique pour préparer les prochaines élections européennes. Je voudrais qu'on reprenne les réflexions qu'on a eues il y a 2 ans, je crois, Manfred, sur les questions de la défense européenne. C'est notre responsabilité. Il ne faut pas compter sur les socialistes, sur les Verts, sur l'extrême gauche ou l'extrême droite pour tenir un discours sur cette question de la défense européenne, en bonne intelligence avec l'OTAN, évidemment, mais pour prolonger les efforts que conduit la Commission, les États membres, je pense que nous devrions nous saisir de cette question d'une défense plus crédible, conduisant à une politique de défense. Et donc je voulais juste faire cette suggestion à la lumière de cette guerre épouvantable que M. Poutine livre à un pays souverain et dont nous sommes solidaires, mais je pense que ça doit nous encourager à faire davantage d'efforts en commun, de mutualiser davantage d'efforts en matière de défense.
Thank you, Michel, for this important reflection. Thank you so much. Then, if there is no other comment, then please, Lydia.
Thank you, Manfred, and thank you very much for all the speeches today by the party leaders. Indeed, I hope that this is a sign of change in the Iberian Peninsula, because we very much need it. If we look at the common issues that the young people across Europe are facing, they are not very different from each other. The conditions are different, the base scenario are a bit different, but in the end of the day, the young people today face troubles in accessing to housing. The inflation is hitting hard salaries and their prospects for hope and for the possibility of aspire to have the same as the generations before. This has been one of our crucial topics that we have been addressing in YEP, which is the fact that younger generations today might not have the same hope in future as our parents and as our grandparents. And so my question is, what do you tell to these young people across Europe, knowing that their problems and their expectations are not that different? I think political parties, and in particular the center-right, we have been the party that delivers credible agendas in resolving people's issues. And then when those problems are resolved, we are taken out of government. But we have to first make this self-assessment, understanding why this happens, and second, to deliver upon this basis of hope. I'm saying this because I came from Sharm el-Sheikh yesterday, from COP27, where I had the chance of being the co-rapporteur of the European Parliament's position for this summit. And new generations are seeing, again, in environmental topics, less of a hope. So I want to ask you, what do you tell to young Europeans to try to make them find the hope that seems to be a bit lost? Thank you.
Lydia, thank you so much, and let me express that we are happy to have the voice of the youth, the YEP president inside of the EPP group as well, so to be really present in the group. Thank you so much for your contribution. Now German, and a Portuguese voice, exactly, yeah. Now a German perspective, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Jürgen Hart. I'm the Foreign Affairs spokesperson of the CDU-CSU group in the Deutsche Bundestag. I would like to come back to the Russian war against Ukraine. We all know that this war is against international law, but we saw, and our colleague from Ukraine mentioned that before, that there's also a huge harming of human rights and international law on war by Russian troops. We have discovered killing, torture, and punishment of war victims. We have this terror against civilians by destroying civil infrastructure and private housing. Are we already prepared to document all those things in our countries, to deliver cooperation and aid to Ukraine, to make sure that for once a day, if we might have the possibility to put that to an international court, that we document all those violations of human rights. And maybe this is an idea for our parties in the national parliaments to ask our governments, what are you doing by documenting those human rights violations by Russia?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think two further questions I think we can collect, and then I would close this session. It's Olgierd, the present group chair of EPP in the Committee of Regions. So Olgierd, please.
Thank you very much, Manfred. On behalf of EPP in the European Committee of Regions, firstly, I would like to thank you very much for organizing this external meeting. I think that this the perspective on the ground in the different places in Europe is extremely important, just to be more familiarized, just to be more on the ground. And so I'm very happy to have to be here in Lisbon. And two remarks and one question. Of course, it is our strong political position that we are strongly and firmly standing in solidarity with Ukraine. And what is, I think, our still very strong asset, it is our partnership of our cities, of our regions with our Ukrainian friends, and thanks to them, delivering concrete support. And I think that as a political family, we have to even strengthen it, and we have to promote it among all our local and regional leaders. Second, it is about the energy, about the green energy, about the energy transition, about energy security. Of course, we all know that if we want to be successful, we have to be energy efficient. So we have to work on the ground to build, to strengthen our energy efficiency, to promote the local energy production as well, and we propose to be taken on the board. Then the third idea is that we see some kind of trend. If we are winning on the ground, in the cities, in the regions, then it is much easier to win in the national level, and then I hope and I'm sure that we can win Europe for the future. And that's why my question is, as we know that we have very strong leader on the ground, and it is my appeal to do it, to follow this path, just like in Spain, just like with the strong leaders, strong mayors in Portugal as well, to cooperate very, very closely. And I think that we can be really thanks to them on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Ales Peterle. Ales, please.
Yes, thank you, President. I was vice chairman of the delegation of the European Parliament to Russia, and 10 years ago, we were preparing the so-called Partnership for Modernization. And it is good to know when the stronger tensions began, when Ukraine was about to sign the association agreement. You know the story with Yanukovych, Maidan, and so on. So, and I'm attentive to the fact that it is not just about relation between Russia and Ukraine. For the first time in the history, Russia really turned face from Europe and reoriented its interests towards Asia, toward China. And this is new fact. Russia was always progressing fast when it was very close to Europe, to the so-called West. But now Europe is considered as a collective enemy. The concept of the enemy is back. And this is also fight with the so-called West. And I think that we should be attentive to this geostrategic change, let's say so. I would be interested in your views about that. Thank you.
Thank you again for the questions and for the considerations. And then I would propose to do a final round of contributions from our leaders here. We start with Nuno, please.
Thank you, Manfred. Briefly, starting by Lídia Pereira and using the Portuguese again. Bom, eu diria, Lídia, a começar que quando nós falamos de jovens, os problemas são muito assimétricos. Nós vivemos na União Europeia, mas os problemas principais dos jovens em Portugal não são equivalentes aos problemas, porventura, dos jovens na Alemanha ou em França. E, portanto, as respostas têm que ser diferentes, consoante a realidade dos países, e há uma grande margem para as políticas nacionais. A União Europeia dá tremendas oportunidades aos jovens. Oportunidades que a minha geração nunca teve. Eu sou da geração que, para passar o ano em Espanha, ultrapassando a fronteira, tínhamos que mostrar o bilhete de identidade. Não tínhamos Erasmus, Copérnicos, não tínhamos nada disso. Ia muitas vezes à Galiza, por sinal. Mostrei muitas vezes o bilhete de identidade na fronteira em Valença Domingo, de onde o nosso querido amigo Luís Alves Pereira foi candidato autárquico, mas isso não importa nada. Isto para dizer que o mundo mudou muito. E há oportunidades que os jovens... Eu não compro a ideia também de que os jovens hoje têm todos os problemas, porque eu também reconheço que os jovens hoje têm possibilidades que a minha geração não teve. Agora, é muito mais difícil ser jovem em Portugal do que ser jovem na Alemanha. Porquê? Vamos cá ver. Eu há pouco dava um exemplo. 70% da população em Portugal tem salários abaixo dos 1.100 euros. Não é estimulante trabalhar em Portugal. E, portanto, os jovens vão para fora. Uns porque querem conhecer o mundo, mas muitos porque não têm alternativa. Portanto, a melhor forma de resolver os problemas dos jovens em Portugal é melhorar a nossa situação económica e financeira. É dar melhores condições às empresas, é criar possibilidades para que se aumentem salários e para que tenham aqui as oportunidades que muitas vezes só encontram lá fora. Neste momento em Portugal, o governo socialista dá incentivos para atrair os chamados nómadas digitais. E então temos pessoas do mundo inteiro, muitas vezes com salários muito altos, que vêm para Portugal e estão praticamente isentos de impostos. No entanto, o partido que se diz socialista cobra muitos impostos àqueles que têm salários baixos em Portugal. Vivemos num país com dois sistemas, que penaliza quem vive cá e beneficia quem vem de fora. Isso para mim é completamente paradoxal. E já agora, para ajudar a ilustrar o que eu digo, é bom que se tenha presente isto. Portugal tem a mais alta taxa de impostos sobre as empresas de toda a OCDE. Estamos a falar de 38 países. Em 38 países, Portugal tem a mais alta taxa sobre as empresas. Neste momento, Portugal bateu recordes de dívida pública. Notem bem, nós no governo, PSD e CDS, resolvemos os problemas, fizemos as reformas, trouxemos saúde às contas públicas. Desde 2015, o que é que os socialistas conseguiram? Número recorde de dívida, número recorde de despesa pública, número recorde de carga fiscal, um número muito maior de pessoas que dependem do Estado. A consequência é uma vida muito pior para os jovens. E, portanto, independentemente de medidas específicas direcionadas para os jovens, eu acho que a primeira obrigação que nós temos é construir uma alternativa forte, que dê melhores condições às finanças públicas, garanta melhores salários, mais empregos, condições para que os jovens queiram ficar cá. Depois, terminando, naturalmente a par de medidas específicas para os jovens, o Dr. Paulo Núncio, que aqui está, para quem não sabe, o Dr. Paulo Núncio foi membro do governo do PSD e do CDS e trabalhou no Ministério das Finanças quando tivemos que implementar as medidas mais difíceis depois da bancarrota dos socialistas. Eu tenho a certeza que neste painel em que vai participar dará algumas medidas muito específicas que o CDS, o meu partido, tem proposto, nomeadamente direcionadas para os jovens, que a Lídia Pereira ouvirá. Quanto à Rússia, e termino, porque no mais tivemos comentários, eu só queria reiterar o que disse, mas antes com uma nota para os nossos amigos da Ucrânia. Portugal a esse nível é um exemplo. Portugal acolhe uma grande comunidade de cidadãos ucranianos. Em Portugal, estes cidadãos ucranianos estão completamente integrados. Trabalham, pagam impostos, ajudam a desenvolver o meu país. Portugal deve ser um dos países da União Europeia que mais ucranianos recebe e, na sequência da guerra da Rússia, da intervenção da Rússia na Ucrânia, fomos, aí devo dizer bem, apesar do governo não ser nosso, mas com o nosso apoio, um país que teve toda a disponibilidade para receber estes cidadãos ucranianos. Quero apenas insistir no agradecimento que lhes deixo, porque realmente, eu quando vos vejo quando todos os dias ligo a televisão para ouvir o noticiário, eu vejo na Ucrânia uma guerra que não é só pela vossa liberdade e pelo vosso território, é também por mim. É pela defesa do meu modo de vida. É pela defesa do mundo ocidental. É pela defesa dos nossos valores. E a única coisa que lhe posso dizer é que, politicamente, no que tem a ver com o meu partido, terá sempre todo o apoio dentro do PPE, no Parlamento Europeu e em Portugal, no que signifique ajuda para o povo ucraniano, ajuda para os vossos militares que são muito valentes e que estão a ajudar a inverter o ciclo de uma guerra que há poucos meses atrás alguns davam como perdida e que hoje nós vemos pode ser vencida. E por isso, salve a Ucrânia.
Thank you, Nuno.
Well, thank you to all of your interventions and your participation. I think I agree with all of the interventions because they were more reflections and less questions. I want to say just to the Lydia question about the youth theme that, as Lydia knows, in Portugal, in PSD, we have now a plan specifically to the young generation around best taxes with political issues in terms of home and the excess of home, the conciliation between the professional and the family life, all of questions about the increase of the wages, which is absolutely important to fix the young people in our country and even in our continent. So we are in the same way as the YEP and the themes Lydia talked are very important for us. So thank you very much. I agree with the other reflection about the Russia theme, about the solidarity with the Ukrainian people, and about energy policies, in particular about the Portugal and Spain challenges in the renewables energy. So thank you very much. Welcome to Portugal and have good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias. Me gustaría hacer 3 apuntes muy breves sobre los comentarios que han hecho los colegas. En primer lugar, al presidente del Comité de las Regiones. Yo estoy totalmente de acuerdo para un país en que es muy importante tener buenos líderes regionales y buenos líderes en las ciudades, porque el país no solamente es lo que ocurre en el centro del país, en la capital del país, sino lo que ocurre en el conjunto del territorio. Y me parece que teniendo buenos alcaldes, buenos presidentes de regiones, de landers, de comunidades autónomas, el Partido Popular Europeo se puede fortalecer. Si no tenemos una base territorial, si no tenemos líderes locales, el Partido Popular Europeo dependerá del líder puntual que tengamos en un momento como presidente de gobierno o como presidente o jefe de Estado. Y, insisto, es muy importante que las raíces del Partido Popular estén en todo el territorio de Europa y que tengamos líderes locales, líderes regionales fuertes, bien formados, para que en cualquier momento podamos utilizarlos al efecto de fortalecer al propio Partido Popular Europeo en su conjunto. Quisiera también hacer algún comentario sobre los jóvenes. Entiendo que siempre lo más importante para un país, si tiene que elegir, y al final el dinero es un bien escaso, susceptible de usos alternativos, salvo para los socialistas, que el dinero es infinito. Para los que le gusta pagar lo que se debe y no gastar más de lo que se tiene, sabe que el dinero es un bien escaso. Y la prioridad, en mi opinión, ha de ser la educación. La educación de los recursos humanos es la educación de nuestros jóvenes. La educación ha de variar porque ha variado todo, se ha modificado todo. En los últimos 30 años, los países nada tienen que ver con los 30 años anteriores. Ni la globalización, ni la tecnología, ni la digitalización tienen que ver con nuestro sistema educativo. Y ahora el sistema educativo europeo ha de hacer un gran esfuerzo para que los contenidos de la educación sean la clave del éxito de nuestros jóvenes. Sin formación no es posible que los jóvenes se emancipen y puedan conseguir los salarios adecuados. Es verdad que también el equilibrio económico y presupuestario de los países tiene que ver mucho con el futuro de los jóvenes. Y es que cuando las generaciones actuales emiten deuda pública de forma indiscriminada, lo que estamos haciendo es vivir a cuenta de los jóvenes, dejándoles una deuda pública que nosotros no vamos a pagar y que van a pagar ellos. Y todas las deudas se pagan. Y a todos los que le debemos dinero nos pedirán que se lo devolvamos. Y si seguimos incrementando de forma exponencial, al final los jóvenes tendrán una carga financiera que disminuirá la calidad de sus servicios públicos, la calidad de sus infraestructuras, la calidad de su bienestar. Y es importante que a los líderes actuales de los países les preocupe mucho la deuda que le dejan a las próximas generaciones. Y es que Europa por primera vez ha emitido 750.000 millones de euros de deuda, Next Generation. Y debemos de ser muy respetuosos con ese dinero que no es nuestro, que es de los jóvenes, que lo van a pagar. Por tanto, los líderes actuales tienen que justificar en qué se gasta ese dinero y no se puede mirar para otro lado cuando un país no lo gasta de forma eficiente. Y no se puede desembolsar dinero sin que se acredite previamente la competitividad de los fondos que se acaban de invertir, porque eso perjudicará la vida actual y futura de los jóvenes. Y por tanto los jóvenes le han de pedir a sus mayores que sean rigurosos con su dinero y que no les dejen países endeudados para que ellos tengan que pagar lo que sus padres gastaron. Y me parece que eso les corresponde a los jóvenes reivindicarlo y exigirle a sus mayores que sean respetuosos con las deudas, es decir, con el dinero de los jóvenes. Y por último, en relación con la energía, sí me gustaría también hacer dos breves comentarios. Un continente, una Unión Europea que no sea competitiva en energía, no será competitiva en su economía. Y de la misma forma que hay políticas monetarias comunes, políticas de defensa comunes, debe haber políticas energéticas comunes. La decisión de Europa en relación con la transición energética, en relación con la vida de las centrales térmicas, en relación con la vida de las centrales nucleares, debe ser una decisión conjunta. Y hemos visto lo que es el efecto de una política energética que no ha sido lo suficientemente valorada y reflexionada, y en este momento la crisis que tiene Europa fundamentalmente es una crisis energética. Y es sorprendente que en algunos países se esté abandonando la energía nuclear y en otros países potenciando la energía nuclear a pocos kilómetros entre fronteras. Y es sorprendente que algunos países estén cerrando todas sus centrales térmicas y otros abriendo al máximo todas sus capacidades de centrales térmicas. Y es sorprendente que en la Unión Europea, que se han relajado todas las reglas, todas, esas reglas que se aplicaron a Pasos Cuello, esas reglas que se aplicaron al presidente Rajoy, ahora resulta que no existen. No existen en el año 20, ni en el año 21, ni en el año 22, ni en el año 23. Recuerdo cuando a Portugal o a España se le abrió un expediente por 1/10 de déficit público. Un expediente. ¿Y ahora? ¿Y ahora? Y ahora hemos perdido el gobierno, claro. Por tanto, no es razonable desenchufar energías que funcionan sin tener energías nuevas para meterlas a la red y bajar el precio de la energía. Sí a la energía termosolar, sí a la energía eólica terrestre, sí a la energía eólica marina, sí a la energía fotovoltaica, pero cuando funcione. Y mientras no funciona, si desenchufamos las energías convencionales, si grabamos las energías convencionales, el precio de la energía sube y automáticamente ya no podemos producir en la Unión Europea ni hierro, ni aluminio, ni acero. Deslocalizamos nuestra industria, la mandamos a Asia y compramos en Asia los productos que se producen sin límites de emisiones, disminuyendo nuestro crecimiento económico, empobreciendo nuestra economía y defraudando a los jóvenes. Por tanto, en mi opinión, la política energética de la Unión ha de ir hacia una transición energética, la respuesta es que sí, pero hacia una transición, no hacia una ruptura ni hacia una crisis como la que tenemos en este momento, ¿no? Estas son, Manfred, las reflexiones que quería trasladarle a nuestros colegas.
Dear friends, that were real leadership contributions, I have to say, very concrete, but very outspoken as well. So I think some of the colleagues in the room, I saw the eyes, were surprised about the clear messaging here. So that's why I thank you so much, and I think that is what EPP needs. I thank you for your contribution, and now I have to, I want to welcome all friends from the European Parliament. I think José Manuel Fernandes is the delegation leader from the Portuguese delegation, so good to see you. And I want to already introduce the next, let me say, person who will do the next panel, and that is the Portuguese voice in the presidency of the EPP family. That is Paulo Rangel as vice president, as treasurer. He is responsible for this next panel, so he will chair the next debate. But I was told by our Secretary General, everybody can enjoy for 5 minutes at least a coffee to relax a little bit, and then we are coming back into the room. So don't escape, but 5 minutes of a rest. Thank you so much.
Vou mesmo interromper ao fim de 5 minutos.
Pois,
Ponto final.
Eu tenho...
Ladies and gentlemen, can you please reconvene? Our Portuguese guests are on the stage, and I'd like to begin the proceedings immediately. So I very much appreciate that you all come back into the room. Thank you very much.
Mas é verdade. Não é humildade, mas é verdade. Pode-me mandar calar quando quiser.
Isso vou fazer, tenho certeza. So,
Eu fiz um texto curtíssimo.
my dear friends, so I think that we can start, if you allow me. Yes, I think people they are coming in, so, but we have really to start, otherwise this will be chaotic in terms of management of time. Okay, very well, my dear friends. Thank you very much for attending this panel. Due to our, I'd say, delay now, I will do this in a very short manner. So I will not address, so I will not give my introduction. That would be 10 minutes. And and I will cut the initial intervention of each one of our members of the panel. I would like to introduce them. So on my right is Assunção Esteves, that is a member of our party, of my party, that is PSD, but she was also the first and the only woman that was Speaker of our Parliament. So between 2011 and 2015, she is also very well known by her work as a constitutional, I wouldn't say lawyer, but researcher and academic. And she was also a member of Constitutional Court some years ago. I'm not going to say how many, but it was some years ago. Then we have also Paulo Núncio. Paulo Núncio is Vice President of CDS, also a sister party of EPP. He was a former Secretary of State of, I'd say, fiscal affairs or tax affairs, because fiscal is budget and financial. It was really taxes. So it's Paulo Núncio. And then we have the chair of our parliamentary group, that is Joaquim Miranda Sarmento, that is also a very well-known public finance professor. And so this is our panel. Assunção will start addressing the issue of the war and peace in Europe, 5 minutes, as I said, and then both Paulo Núncio and Joaquim Miranda Sarmento, they will speak about the economic situation, how they see the economic situation of Portugal, that, by the way, it has a lot of things in common with other countries all across Europe, and so it will be interesting to see how socialists are doing things and how we, what are the alternatives that we are proposing. So this will be also quite interesting. And then we will open during a very short period of time, also 10, 12 minutes for some debate. So we are going to try to do this in half an hour, 35 minutes maximum, in order to save some time. So, Assunção, the floor is yours. You have only 5 minutes. And I will be, not 6, 5. So you have to...
Ok. Senhor Presidente do Partido Popular Europeu, Manfred Weber, velho amigo. Senhor Presidente do PSD, Luís Montenegro, queridíssimo Presidente do PSD. Senhor Secretário-Geral do PPE, Tanassis Bacolas, que eu não sei se está na sala. Também quero dirigir os meus cumprimentos ao Senhor Presidente do CDS-PP, Nuno Melo, que eu não vejo. E queridos companheiros e velhos amigos do PPE, muitos que eu conheço e estão presentes na sala. O espírito não pensa bem se não estiver sintonizado com a realidade. E a realidade intensa do momento obriga-nos a pensar sobre nós. Como nasceu a nossa cultura, que insuficiências mostra no seu percurso, como chegamos aqui, como podemos construir a justiça que nos dá a paz. Com a expressão os intermináveis caminhos da paz, não significo uma caminhada sem saída e sem esperança. O que eu quero dizer é que os caminhos da paz são plurais e em dinâmica permanente. Eles são, e devem ser, caminhos abertos e em contínuo desenvolvimento. A paz não é um ponto de chegada, é um equilíbrio permanente entre o diverso. Pressupõe uma razão que comunica entre culturas que não se fecham. Uma paciência que não é a filosofia do instante, mas antes se desenvolve no tempo. Que não reduz a uma pura técnica as relações entre povos. A nossa cultura tem a marca indelével do pensamento grego, ancorado no cogito imutável que lê a realidade pela razão, e que se prolongou em Descartes e na leitura intelectual do iluminismo. A mesma leitura que nos trouxe a promessa não cumprida de uma paz perpétua. O pensamento fundador da União Europeia, da razão e das luzes, determinou o nosso modo de pensar e de viver. O seu discurso contrafactual, racional e abstrato formou as regras universais que nos dizem que cada ser humano é um fim em si mesmo e que oferecem à justiça as coordenadas da proibição do arbítrio. Definitivamente, pelo seu peso, essa razão ergueu no Ocidente os limites que nos resguardam da iniquidade. Os catálogos de direitos das nossas Constituições têm a marca indelével desse discurso. A sua resiliência deve-se a um altíssimo grau de abstração e extensibilidade para o universal, que a mesma abstração permite, afastando a contingência. Nós recebemos essas regras, fazemos delas pátria constitucional. Mas como responde o fundamento ao teste do resultado? Como se desenvolve? Como se desenvolve para responder às infinitas manifestações da vida? Já antes da vitória dessa razão que nos formou, perguntar a Ésquilo pela voz por dentro do coro na hora esteia, depois de tudo, que orgulho nos fica na cidade. O discurso da razão que marcou a nossa cultura teve um preço. Muito abstrato para ser universal, ele reduziu a realidade do múltiplo, contrastou liberdade e natureza, intelectualizou a nossa visão do mundo e o nosso sentido do outro. O outro surge aí como projeção, figuração mental de quem o vê, espécie de representação. Mas o outro não é isso. O outro é verdadeiramente o diverso. O outro é o rosto com o seu clamor, que diz que eu sou responsável por tudo e por todos e afirma a minha responsabilidade universal. Como dizia Dostoiévski por Alyosha e os irmãos Karamazov, intensamente lembrado por Levinas, o filósofo da alteridade. A rejeição da diferença, a rejeição da diferença e a vertigem de querer reduzir a diversidade à unidade são marcas do dualismo que inspira a cultura e ordena a vida ética. A oposição manicaísta entre o bem e o mal, que não reconhece a nossa natureza de mistura, que não reconhece a nossa condição de existir entre queda e elevação, que não repara que somos intermediários entre o limite da perspectiva e o desejo de infinito, como nos lembrou Paul Ricoeur. O dualismo simplifica e dilacera. A filosofia explicou com a ideia de consciência infeliz. Em boa verdade, só o personalismo cristão sobrevoou uma tal visão do mundo, amputada e geométrica. A passagem do Evangelho sobre o bom samaritano carrega o sentido mais sublime do longe próximo, dissipação da estranheza do outro. Acresce que a cultura ocidental vem reduzindo a racionalidade à ciência. Husserl denunciou a crise gerada com a crescente afirmação da tecnociência, chamando a atenção para a necessidade de não esquecermos o mundo da vida. O predomínio da linguagem científica que procura a unidade universal vai afastando a linguagem natural. mas é a linguagem natural que diversifica o saber, que o pede, que garante o diálogo humano. No modo de pensar e de viver, transportamos a marca da origem de uma visão retilínea do mundo, que a ciência captou até aos limites extremos da tecnocracia e que o direito plasmou nas suas estruturas abstratas, em que a nossa frágil condição não tem estatuto. Amigos e companheiros, estou quase a acabar, é necessária uma razão que desce e se adapta às manifestações da vida concreta e múltipla. Uma razão que acolhe a fragilidade, a diferença e a contingência, como sinalizaram os pós-modernos do chamado pensamento débil e como o cristianismo antecipou no seu olhar do amor. A dificuldade de lidar com o diverso faz-nos sentir a realidade como constitutivamente guerreira. O outro é tantas vezes sentido como negativo, como inferior, como desafio de pensamento. Recolhemos-nos então numa pertença unidade primordial que nos abriga. A paz não é o mesmo que uma vitória sobre a guerra, abrindo a uma sombra de desesperados armistícios. Não é isso. A paz é um processo aberto, sustentado na razão que comunica. A sua matéria é a justiça que se afirma na ação. E a justiça, e não é a justiça da pura equivalência do contrato, mas a justiça do equilíbrio que nos vê em natureza e condição. É a nossa condição comum que nos dá a partilha de destino. Essa mesma condição diz-nos que o diálogo não é impossível. Preciso de 2 frases. O mundo mostra que as culturas evoluem em diferente ritmo e reclamam o impulso da comunicação. Impulso que não é levar o outro a pensar o mesmo sobre todas as coisas. Precisamos exercitar o espanto pelo bem, em vez do habitual espanto pelo mal do outro. Só o espanto pelo bem é gerador de confiança e ele encontra caminho nos genes das culturas, a literatura, a arte e a língua. O nosso programa de ação, faltam 2 frases.
Peço desculpa. Acabou 5 minutos, passo para o Paulo.
Então fica para o debate.
So, now we change to Paulo Núncio, please. Now we have to be really very strict because we had the leaders already with a lot of time. Now,
Mr. Ferber, Dr. Nuno Melo, Dr. Luís Montenegro, em primeiro lugar agradecer o convite que me foi feito para participar nesta Assembleia Política do PPE, e é com este tipo de iniciativas nos vários Estados-membros que se criam as condições para o PPE voltar a ganhar as eleições europeias em 2024 e em Portugal tudo faremos para contribuir para esse esforço a nível europeu. Depois deste ensaio filosófico, pediram-me para falar brevemente sobre a situação económica e financeira de Portugal. A resposta curta é que a situação é má e preocupante. A resposta mais complexa é aquela que eu vou tentar dar em 5 minutos que me foram dados. Portugal tem um problema de crescimento económico e um problema de finanças públicas. Nos últimos 8 anos, os socialistas perderam uma oportunidade de ouro de fazer as reformas estruturais essenciais para modernizar o país e para robustecer o crescimento económico de Portugal. E com isso, fugir à armadilha da dívida, ou seja, retirar Portugal da zona de risco de uma nova crise de dívidas soberanas. Nada foi feito. O Governo limitou-se a gerir o dia-a-dia, sem qualquer ímpeto reformista, sem qualquer reforma estrutural. E limitando-se a aplicar a velha agenda de esquerda de mais Estado e maior Estado. Nos últimos 8 anos, a dívida pública portuguesa aumentou 50 mil milhões de euros. Nos últimos 8 anos, a despesa pública aumentou ano após ano e em 2021 atingiu cerca de 50% do PIB, ou seja, cerca de metade da riqueza criada em Portugal é consumida em despesa pública. E não obstante, os serviços públicos deterioram-se de ano após ano. Para pagar tudo isto, e naturalmente, a carga fiscal aumentou todos os anos e neste momento bate recordes atrás de recordes. Em paralelo, o país empobreceu em termos de PIB per capita, passando de 78% da média da União Europeia em 2015 para 74% da média europeia em 2021, tendo Portugal sido ultrapassado por 4 Estados-membros da União Europeia. E em 2022, as famílias e as empresas portuguesas estão a ser fortemente castigadas com uma inflação que chegou a 10% em outubro, sem que o Governo tenha previsto. Aliás, o Governo previa, em maio deste ano, que a inflação para o ano todo de 2022 seria apenas de 2%. E o Governo, sobre essa matéria, continua a fazer de morto, sem aplicar as medidas necessárias para apoiar as empresas e as famílias. Feito este enquadramento, o que é que o Governo pretende fazer para o ano de 2023, com o Orçamento de Estado para o próximo ano? Bom, eu diria um pouco mais do mesmo, um pouco mais de agenda socialista. Em primeiro lugar, o cenário macroeconómico em que assenta o orçamento para 2023 é claramente otimista e está claramente desatualizado da realidade. O governo do PS continua basicamente a dizer que continua tudo bem, afastando perentoriamente um cenário de recessão económica e dizendo que Portugal vai continuar a crescer 1,3% em 2023. Contrariamente ao que diz o Conselho de Finanças Públicas, contrariamente ao que diz a Comissão Europeia, ainda agora nas previsões do outono, e também o BCE, que infelizmente não afastam um cenário de recessão económica. Vivemos momentos de grande incerteza que aconselhariam um discurso mais prudente por parte do governo português. Em segundo lugar, para 2023, a despesa pública vai continuar a crescer, como se não houvesse amanhã, e naturalmente a carga fiscal vai novamente bater recordes, vai continuar a bater recordes. E finalmente, sendo Portugal um dos países mais endividados da União Europeia, qualquer alteração das taxas de juros do BCE terá fortes e severas consequências na sustentabilidade da dívida pública portuguesa. Aguardemos para ver como irá funcionar o mecanismo de antifragmentação que foi anunciado pelo Banco Central Europeu, mas sabemos que a subida das taxas de juros que será aprovada pelo Banco Central Europeu nos próximos meses é absolutamente necessária para conter a inflação nos 2% e para fazer face à valorização do dólar. Mas sempre que a taxa de juros aumentar, a economia portuguesa vai sofrer. Um número sobre esta matéria que me parece fundamental. Em 5 anos, Portugal poupou 3,4 mil milhões de euros em juros da dívida pública por causa da política do quantitative easing do Banco Central Europeu. Só para 2023, o montante de juros que vai ser pago no Orçamento de Estado vai ultrapassar 1,2 mil milhões de euros, ou seja, num único ano, Portugal vai consumir 1/3 da poupança. Termino dizendo que, nos últimos 8 anos, o Governo Socialista também não aprovou uma única medida de reforço da competitividade fiscal. Pelo contrário, a única medida que o Governo Socialista aprovou foi rasgar um acordo da reforma do IRC de 2014, que tinha sido aprovado pelo PSD, pelo CDS e pelo PS, e que previa um reforço significativo da competitividade fiscal do país. E em resultado do rasgar, última frase, em resultado de rasgar este acordo, esta reforma, Portugal tem hoje, como o Dr. Nuno Melo teve há pouco a oportunidade de dizer, a taxa estatutária de IRC mais alta da União Europeia, 31,5%, o que é um desastre para o investimento. Em suma, Portugal precisa de um novo governo, de um governo que lide melhor com a atual crise e que no futuro, no médio prazo, seja capaz de reduzir a despesa pública, a carga fiscal, tornando o país um país mais humanista e mais próspero. Muito obrigado pela vossa atenção.
Thank you very much. And now I pass immediately the floor to Joaquim Miranda Sarmento, the chair of our parliamentary group.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for this invitation. Over the last 20 years, Portugal has been facing an economic stagnation. From 2000 to 2019, the accumulated GDP real growth was 10%, representing an annual average real growth of 0.5. 2 decades of economic stagnation represents that income and salaries have also stagnated. Portugal is part of the cohesion group of countries in the EU and is with such groups that we should out-compare our economic performance. In the last 25 years, Portugal's GDP increased in real terms by 35%, as the average cohesion country more than doubled the real GDP. And it's even worse when we look at the last 2 decades. Portugal had the worst economic performance of the cohesion group in terms of GDP growth, and among the EU 27 member states, it was only outperformed by Italy. Even the economic recovery of the last years after the end of the Troika program was merely the recovery of the 2008 GDP output level in real terms. Between 2015 and 22, Portugal accumulated GDP growth was 7%. On the other hand, the average GDP accumulated growth of the cohesion countries was 18%. Portugal had the second lowest GDP growth, only outperformed by Greece. And for the following years, according to the IMF 22-27 projections, which were released in October, Portugal will have the lowest GDP group of the cohesion countries. And the cause for such stagnation and lack of competitiveness in the Portuguese economy are well known. Transaction costs, bureaucracy and red tape, the lack of competition in several sectors and markets, a complex and unstable tax system with a high tax burden for families and firms, a slow and ineffective justice system, high levels of debt, public, private, families and firms, and external, a high level of primary current expenditure when compared with direct competitors, with a low level of efficiency in public services, a regional and dual labor market, the lack of skill of human capital in some sectors, and the low link between R&D at universities and firms, and low levels of private and public investment with low efficiency and low generation of value add. And finally, Portuguese firms have problems in terms of scale, in terms of leverage, and in terms of internationalization. With exports representing only 45% of GDP, Portugal is the second lowest export country in the cohesion group. Finally, demography is not only reducing population, but also aging it, reducing labor participation in the market. The Portuguese government did not design the EU funds for this decade to increase the capacity and resilience of the economy, and they need to address the main drivers of the Portuguese economic competitiveness. The use of EU funds needs a robust public service. The extraordinary amount of resources that need to be committed in the next years is unprecedented, around 5% of GDP each year. The current crisis is putting intense pressure on Portuguese families and firms. Inflation and an increase in interest rates are reducing families' disposable income. More than 80% of house loans are due in variable interest rates. This is putting strong pressure on more than 3 million families' monthly payments to banks. Portuguese firms are also facing increasing costs, not just on energy, but other costs, particularly raw materials for industry and construction. The 22 economic growth of 6.5%, the second highest in the EU, is an illusion. It is just the recovery of the fourth largest drop of GDP in 2020, which was 8.4%. Portugal is one of the EU countries that recovered the pre-pandemic levels later. And for 23 and beyond, GDP growth will remain low, below 2% a year. In this crisis, unlike 2008, not only the country has higher levels of debt, as public services on health, education, civil administration are at the brink of collapse. There is a structural crisis in the Portuguese public service. Public investment is also at the lowest levels, around 2% GDP. And it's one of the EU lowest levels of public investment. And yet, around 85% of this public investment is funded by EU funds. Without EU participation, public investment would be close to zero, or the fiscal deficits would be higher. We are now facing a new crisis with strong surge in inflation, the main economic problem we face currently. The disruption in the supply chains, the reduction of globalization on world trade, and the revenge spending only aggravate this. And obviously, the war in Ukraine and the energy crisis have increased more such problems. The crisis ahead needs, in Portugal, of different policies than the one that the socialist government has been conducting. Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you. So, here we had now, I'd say two dimensions. One a bit more philosophical about our values towards peace and war, and then naturally a portrait of some of the struggling structural problems of our economy and development, and how the policies that are implemented by socialists that governed 20 out of the last 27 years have been really a burden to this idea of recovery, of launching a living economy and a successful economy and model of development. So now I would open the floor for 2 or 3 questions maximum, and then for a short answer. So who would like to take the floor? I'm trying to see across the room if there's someone that wants to.
If not, we can finish the speeches.
No, you cannot. Yes, please. There was a microphone here, I think.
Não, está, já está.
Ok.
Muito, vamos cá ver, nós...
Very short.
Very short. Nós percebemos uma exposição muito relevante sobre a situação portuguesa. O que eu gostava de perceber na vossa opinião é qual será a evolução. Ou seja, nós temos ainda 3 anos de governo socialista, temos um determinado comportamento dos indicadores macroeconómicos, mas que em relação a Portugal são preocupantes, e a questão, sabemos que há países que podem entrar em recessão, e gostava de saber, na vossa opinião, o que é que poderá acontecer nos próximos 3 anos em Portugal.
Thank you very much, Nuno. That's our president of CDS. There is still room for any question, please. You have your own microphone.
Okay, sorry. We mentioned before the issue of trade, in particular, for example, to Mercosur. Is there an option for Portugal as well as for Spain as an interface and making more out of these potential opportunities? Thank you.
Very well. I would take a last question if someone wants to take the floor. If not, I would give now 2 minutes to Paulo Núncio and then to Joaquim in order to address these 2 questions, and then we'll conclude with the last minute of only one of Assunção Esteves to conclude her reasoning on this philosophical approach to our values of peace and war. Please.
Bom, em termos de o que vai acontecer nos próximos 3 anos, é difícil prever com tanta distância, mas eu diria que para os próximos tempos eu prevejo que haja uma deterioração económica e social em Portugal. Aliás, esse é um dos problemas do governo socialista. O governo socialista, como sabem, em 2011 foi responsável por uma bancarrota, que depois um governo de centro-direita, do PSD e do CDS, herdaram e foram obrigados a recuperar o país com medidas difíceis e exigentes, mas deixaram um país bastante melhor do que aquele que receberam dos socialistas. Eu diria que os próximos tempos vão ser duros, não obstante o governo continuar a dizer que, em termos gerais, está tudo bem e vai continuar tudo bem. Era preferível um governo que dissesse a verdade, que explicasse as dificuldades que aí vêm e que introduzisse um conjunto de medidas que, ainda que difíceis, são necessárias para defender o interesse nacional. Isto num curto espaço de tempo. No médio e longo prazo, no médio prazo, eu diria que a solução socialista levará de uma forma irreversível ao contínuo empobrecimento do país. Despesa pública alta, impostos altos, aumento de dívida pública são 3 aspectos fundamentais para um crescimento sustentável, saudável e robusto da economia portuguesa. E esse tem sido a agenda socialista nos últimos anos e essa agenda continuará seguramente. Por isso eu diria que, em termos de empobrecimento relativo, em termos de PIB per capita, com os socialistas no poder, muito provavelmente Portugal vai continuar a empobrecer relativamente face aos outros Estados-membros da União Europeia.
Ficamos por aqui. Passo para o Joaquim, please.
Thank you. Concerning the question on opportunities for Portugal and Spain in terms of Mercosur, I would add also Africa and North America. There is a huge potential, but for that you need not just infrastructures, but you also need regulation, a tax system that attracts investments in firms and skilled laborers. And we saw, even before the pandemics, there is a nearshoring opportunities, but unfortunately we don't see the government and the public agencies that are supposed to attract investment and firms working on those opportunities of reindustrialization in Europe, here in Portugal. Concerning the next years, well, a small and open economy as Portugal is always very dependent on the world and particularly the European economy. But nevertheless, the lack of structural reforms is increasing this dependency of the Portuguese economy in terms of what is the evolution of the European economy. So if the European and the Eurozone enters in a recession, Portugal will have difficult times ahead because the lack of structural reforms over the last years did not increase our independence through the economic evolution of the main partners that we have in terms of trade, which are mainly Spain, France, Italy, and obviously also Germany. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Now I would give the floor to Assunção only to conclude her reasoning.
Okay.
So 1 minute.
Ok. Eu podia ler o que falta.
É isso. É só 1 minuto.
Eu posso ler o que falta, sim, também poderia. Eu prefiro explicar a ler. Nós temos uma fundação num discurso imbatível do ponto de vista lógico, o discurso abstrato da razão, que nos deu os valores fundamentais, que são a nossa pátria constitucional, que nos dão a segurança da limitação do arbítrio. E o que eu quis dizer, e não tive tempo de dizer, é que esse discurso racional e abstrato é insuficiente para responder a todos os desafios da vida. E precisa de uma adaptação. E essa adaptação faz-se transformando a razão abstrata numa razão que comunica. Essa razão que comunica implica um pensar não apenas científico do mundo, implica um regresso à linguagem natural, à troca de saberes, implica no plano das elites sociais e das elites políticas uma comunicação contínua através de canais informais. É a ausência dessas vias, é a ausência da adaptação da razão que nos fundou, que leva às situações de impasse e à impossibilidade do diálogo. Eu devo dizer, saindo do discurso mais filosófico para o pragmático, que eu não vejo nas elites políticas uma ocupação pela ideia de diálogo proporcional àquilo que o nosso tempo nos exige. É que o nosso discurso abstrato confinou-nos a um olhar retilíneo sobre a vida. E por isso eu acusei, entre aspas, as consequências na visão do outro e num pensamento dualista, de certo modo manicaísta, do nosso modo de olhar o mundo. Eu dou um exemplo rápido. Essa visão retilínea é que aplicou o Dr. Paulo Rangel ao não nos deixar terminar os discursos. A razão comunicativa é aquela que nós teríamos se tivéssemos mais 3 minutos para terminar os discursos. A primeira criou uma situação de tensão e fratura. A segunda proporcionaria conclusões concretas e o diálogo. É isso que se pede à política.
So thank you very much, but as you see, Assunção is not right, because I gave her more 3 minutes at the end.
Okay.
So this is not fair, because I was practicing this communication reasoning. So thank you very much. The purpose of this debate was more to give you awareness of what is our situation today and how we are engaged also with values, but how is our situation in economic terms in Portugal. And by the way, there are other countries all across Europe with the same kind of issues. And so it is very important only to give you this awareness. It's not to give you, I'd say, a lecture on this, but only the main pillars of our situation, what is our crossroad, and how we can overcome it. So thank you very much, and we'll have after, I think we'll have now a small, I don't know, no, we don't have, so we are going immediately to proceed with the next panel that will be shared by Esther de Lange, my very, very dear friend and colleague in European Parliament and also in the presidency of EPP. Thank you very much.
Yes, dear friends. I don't know if this one is working. Yeah, perfect. Don't worry, my speech has been gone into the bin, so I will not be taking much of your time. I'll just be making the transition into our panel discussion on the issue of energy. The only quote I kept from the speech that we prepared was the one that you also saw on the screen in the introductory video of this afternoon. And it was the famous one by Robert Schuman, who insisted that Europe, as we know, would not be made all at once, but step by step and based on de facto solidarity. Une solidarité de fait. And it's exactly that concrete solidarity, I think, that the EU has been trying to organize in this energy crisis by redirecting windfall profits of energy companies to help vulnerable citizens, vulnerable consumers, by making sure that we also save energy and have filled our storage capacities, and by proposing to buy gas jointly to drive down or cap prices. And we need to organize this winter of solidarity now, and it still takes some work. And we shouldn't only do that for the citizens in our 27 member states, we should do that together with our friends and partners, but we should also do it for Ukraine. Because Putin knows very well that energy is our Achilles heel. He knows that energy has the potential to divide us. And therefore, if we want to stand with Ukraine, and we do, then therefore Europe in the field of energy needs to stand united. This is what we will discuss in the panel right now, and up to me the ungrateful task to also keep track of time. So I'll be calling the speakers for the panel onto the stage. I already saw Bart Vermeulen, who is the Director of Government Relations of ExxonMobil. So Bart, please join us on the stage. We have Bertrand Depré, who's Vice President of EU Government Affairs at Schneider Electric. We have with us, I'm just looking where he is, Kostas Krekas, who's the Minister of the Environment and Energy in Greece. Looking at our Secretary General to help us track down Kostas for the panel. There he is. Thank you very much, Minister. It's great to see you. And then finally, we will be joined by Andrea Carrero, who is Innovation Strategy Director at CleanWatts. Andrea, great to see you, and I will join you in the panel. So, great to see all of you. Of course, we have to improvise here a bit, also keeping track of time, but maybe I go straight to Greece, because of course you come from a country that has a huge potential when it comes to energy, that also has a prime minister that has been very active in reaching out to partners across the Mediterranean. So please tell our audience what role Greece can play in providing Europe with more and maybe even more of our own energy. What are your thoughts?
Well, for sure Greece is going to play a very important role regarding the energy security of the whole northeastern Europe, not only for Balkans. So let me first say that thank you for the very kind invitation, Mr. President, dear colleagues. We live in turbulent times. Unfortunately, we have this unprecedented Russian invasion to Ukraine that has created, of course, is creating thousands of innocent casualties, but also fuels an energy crisis that we haven't seen at least the last decades. I would say that this energy crisis is much more severe than the energy crisis of 70s. And why I say this, because we have record high prices in gas, in oil, and in electricity at the same time. So it's an energy crisis with an intense and a duration that nobody knows how much it's going to last. So what is the solution to this? So we have to do, as European member states and as Europe, we should first of all stay united and show our solidarity to the Ukrainian people and nation, of course. On the other hand, we have to see how we're going to tackle this excessive and skyrocketing energy prices that are threaten the social cohesion of Europe currently. So we should move in two directions. The first is, of course, to securing the supply of energy. So in Greece we have done many things in this field. We have a regasification facility of around 7.5 BCM already operating, and we are planning to build a new FSRU of another 5.5 BCM capacity by the end of 2023. We have already proceed in increasing our infrastructure for the interconnection between Greece and Bulgaria. We have already inaugurated the commercial operation of a new gas pipeline, the IGB, which connects Greece with Bulgaria with a 3 BCM capacity that can be expanded up to 5 BCM. This year we have exported 2.5 BCM to Bulgaria versus 0.7 last year. So almost 70% of Bulgaria's consumption is covered from imports from Greece. Also, we have increased the exports to electricity. We have exported more than 2 terawatt hours this year versus last year. And of course, we are doubling the electricity interconnection with Bulgaria by the end of the first quarter of Q1 2023. We will double the electricity interconnection with Bulgaria from 2 BCM to 4 BCM. We are tripling the interconnection with Albania. We are doubling the electricity interconnection with North Macedonia, and we are doubling the electricity interconnection with Italy. On the other hand, we are preparing a very ambitious project to connect Greece with Egypt through a green electricity interconnection of 3 gigawatt, of a capacity of 3 gigawatt. So Greece is being transformed to a hub of green energy and the main entrance gate of LNG to Balkans and to Northern European member states. Now, of course, this is a short-term solution for the security of supply and for diversifying the sources of natural gas supply. We also need to tackle, to deal with the medium and long-term targets. And that energy crisis, this energy crisis, has accelerated dramatically the green transition. In Greece currently, we are producing 46% of the electricity consumption from renewables. A few weeks ago, there were 5 hours, consecutive hours, that 100% of the local consumption and 100% of the exports were produced, electricity exports and electricity consumption were produced from renewables. Greece currently is the number 8th country in the world when it comes to renewables contribution into our energy mix. EY published yesterday, or the day before, a study for the renewables attractiveness environment. And Greece ranks in the second place in the world, accounting to if it is proportionally to the GDP. So the first is Morocco and the second is Greece. We want by 2026, 60% of the electricity consumption producing by renewables. In the year 2030, we want that 80% of the electricity consumption will come from renewables. That means that from the 10 gigawatt of installed capacity that we have now, we should arrive to 28 gigawatt of installed capacity of renewable, plus 7 giga storage systems, and plus, of course, the upgrading of the electricity interconnection.
Well, those are huge efforts and more to come, if I understand you correctly. Let us maybe also turn to the issue of energy savings, because if you ask many of the experts in the short term, you talked short term and long term, of course, quite rightly so, but in the short term, energy savings should be part of what we do in Europe to get through this winter and also the next. And I think Bertrand Depré, how can data and digitalization and smart solutions, I think that your company can help provide, how can they play a role in making sure we can save in a smart way?
Thank you very much, Esther. And indeed, I think, you talk about energy security, that's the theme of the day, and in Europe, really, to realize this challenge, there are two things: electrification and energy efficiency, right? Supply is something I'm not going to address. Electrification, my colleague, I'm sure, are going to approach that, but energy efficiency is a must-do. I mean, if you look actually at the gas storage, if we want to keep the level of 30% by the end of the winter, we need to reduce the energy consumption by 10%, right? Otherwise, we are not going to manage it. And it can be done. I'm going to give the example of Japan. 10 years ago, you have Fukushima, and Japan has managed to reduce the energy consumption by 20 to 30% in less than 1 month. And it must be done. I think that's an important issue. If you look at what happened in Texas last year, where there was a blackout during winter time, where hundreds of people who have died, we need to take that very seriously, because maybe such thing will not happen in Europe this winter, but that could happen the next winter if we don't invest in the right solution. And energy saving, energy efficiency is a critical one. Now, to address your point, I think energy efficiency, we have to be very precise about what it is. And from a point of view, it has to be innovation. It has to be an investment and not a waste of money in technologies that will not create value added for Europe. And this is clearly where digital is a key enabler, because that really makes energy efficiency not only able to reduce your energy consumption, but also to integrate energy renewable. I mean, you told me you install home automation in your, where you live, and this is typically something you can control your heating, you can know when you will have renewable energy accessible, you can connect it to your solar panel, you could have also an idea about how the smart grid is going to react to what you do, which means flexibility, demand-side flexibility, which is super important because you could address the peak load. And that's a no-brainer issue, because if we have electric vehicle, that means plus 30% energy consumption by household in Europe, and therefore you need to have technology which again address energy efficiency, but also the integration of renewable. To do that, we need to have return on investment clearly in mind. That means where to focus. Building is clearly a priority because it's a large energy consumer, 40%. But then, you know, maybe we should start to invest in commercial buildings, in industrial buildings where you have a much higher return on investment. And then, obviously, the Commission has made proposals, Fit for 55, a lot of good things here. And we need really to keep the ambition level, but make sure that, you know, we privilege, again, technologies that could really have digital and also look at what renewable energy could address. Last but not least, and I'm going to stop here, speed is the essence here because, you know, it's not a 10-year issue, right? It's a 1-2 year issue.
Very clear, thank you very much. And on several occasions, you already mentioned the I word, investment. Now, of course, there's a big discussion in terms of whether Europe is still attractive enough for investment when it comes to facilitating the energy transition. It's an important issue for the EPP because we've always said that the Green Deal should not only be green. We want to reach those targets, but it also should be an attractive deal. Now, of course, we see America where through new legislation, the IRA, the Biden administration has made it extremely attractive to invest, giving levels of state aid that would maybe not be allowed in Europe in normal times. Tax breaks in particular, of course, they're working with, as a result of which we've already seen some investment be kind of not done in Europe when it comes, for example, to batteries for electrical mobility and be done rather in the US. So Bart Vermeulen, I mean, of course, you being from ExxonMobil, you know the American environment, the European environment. Does Europe have enough tools in the toolbox to facilitate investment into this important transition and into securing our energy mix?
Thank you very much for inviting us to the panel here, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to provide our insights and comments on this. First of all, I think it's very important we fully recognize that we're in extremely challenging times here, and obviously you're asking us from an American company perspective, but we've been present in Europe for over 125 years. We are a significant producer of energy in Europe, and as a reliable partner to Europe, we've really made an effort this past year to increase our production of natural gas, to provide more LNG to Europe that we produce elsewhere in the US, in the Middle East. We've expanded our LNG terminals across Europe to make sure that we help provide an incentive and then help reduce those energy prices to the extent possible. The same for our fuels business. We have a major network of refineries, second only to TotalEnergies here in Europe. So we are a major refiner, and we've increased our production there as well to help address the needs here in Europe. Coming to the transatlantic relationship, I think it's very important, first of all, to see that the energy relationship, the transatlantic relationship is recovering. We were in a very difficult position, obviously, several years ago. And the transatlantic relationship is incredibly important for European welfare, for our joint economic prosperity on both sides of the Atlantic. And incredibly important, as we notice now more than ever before, for our security, the defense relationship with North America. Finally, a third dimension is, I think, on climate leadership. I think Europe and the United States have a unique opportunity now to lead the world towards the transition targets for 2030 and 2050. And I am personally very encouraged to see that the Biden administration has re-signed the Paris Agreement, is ready to commit to those 2050 targets. And most importantly, we see now that the US government is putting in place policies to actually achieve those ambitions that it's setting ourselves. And we as Europe, I believe, should be welcoming that. We should applaud that we have a partner to lead the world in the energy transition. And sure, the Inflation Reduction Act is the way to close the gap that the United States sees. And they're behind perhaps on some fronts, but they're going to be catching up very quickly. Personally, I'm encouraged that they're trying to close the gap that way. And we may not like all elements of the policies. We as a company have some reservations about some elements, and I know that the European Union has significant reservations about some of the elements, for example, the EV credits, but there's many more elements to the IRA. The IRA tries to really incentivize low carbon energy production in the United States. That includes, incentivizing electrical vehicles. Granted, that's true, but it also includes incentivizing biofuels production, includes incentivizing CCS, sustainable aviation fuel. For our business, particularly, we're interested in the space of carbon capture, usage, and storage, where an element of the new IRA 45Q really opens up the market and expands the market for carbon capture and storage, which has led to several announcements for millions of tons of CO2 capture within just a few years of time. That progresses much more quickly than what we see in Europe. Another example is the 45V, which incentivizes low carbon hydrogen production. And that too is an area where we see announcements now coming out very quickly. In fact, many European companies such as Vestas and Ørsted are now flocking to the US to produce green hydrogen, and are also taking advantage of a secondary incentive to produce synthetic fuels based on green hydrogen. So some of these tax incentives can actually be stacked. So it's a very new approach of the United States to attract investments. It's something that we as Europe should be looking to very carefully, because it generates these investment decisions to go very, very quickly. We have a number of carbon capture storage projects in Europe going on right now. They are taking a lot of time to progress and to mature. Europe does not have a CCUS strategy. The United States now has these fiscal incentives to generate these decisions to be made very, very quickly. And I think we can learn quite a bit from that as Europe.
Yeah. With the added handicap, of course, that anything that is related to taxation and tax breaks always has to be agreed among 27 member states. That is just the added handicap we have to work with at European level. But you're quite right. It also means that we in Europe have to do our homework. For example, when it comes to very long planning permission procedures, which is again a very important issue for the EPP. We want these shortened in order to allow for the transition to be sped up. And I think, Andrea, planning procedures is something that you also have experience with, but from a very more local perspective. You've worked in accelerating the transition with local communities, also on the Azores. Again, very important for the EPP that green energy is not something for cities alone. How do we make sure that also rural areas can profit from this transition? You have experience there. You told me getting planning permission is an issue in Europe. What are your experiences? And how do we bring along communities? Because that is basically what you do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Boa tarde a todos. Good afternoon to all. Yes, exactly. Renewable energy communities are a perfect context for and a key role for the energy transition, because it's a way that we can basically aggregate several energy end users, and in a kind of collective self-consumption. So we are able to produce the energy in rural villages, for example, and share the surplus of this energy with the community. And in this way, we are able to fight the energy poverty in some places, and also to increase the competitiveness of the companies, and working for the cohesion of the territory. territories. And at CleanWatt, yes, we have this experience. We have more than 100 communities in Portugal. The business model, it's basically the end user don't pay for the installation of the infrastructure. We select some villages, and then we create a kind of a project finance, and then we present for the private investors. So we don't need subsidies and funds. So the investors are able to give us the money to build the community, and then we receive some rewards by sharing this energy with this community. Of course, asking for the tariff much less than in comparison to the price that we have in the grid. And for example, it's something that I totally disagree with the social tariffs. This is subsidy that don't give an effective way to have the energy transition. And for example, if vulnerable families are able to be included in the renewable energy communities, they will pay around less 30% in comparison to the tariff of the grid that they have. So, and this seems really, really great, and it's great, but we still have a problem in Portugal and in all Europe, of course. We have the first one, it's the transposition of the Renewable Directive, that it's not well done in all the member states.
Coming,
and
right?
the new one it's coming. Yeah. So to be honest, I think Portugal is really advanced in this matters regarding to the regulatory framework. But at the end, when we need to implement, when we need to work in the permitting and the licensing aspect, it's really complicated. We have around 60 ongoing in the licensing entity, and it takes more than 8 months, and this is some restrictions that we are seeing with our investors, and we see some kind of contractions here. So we don't need subsidies, we don't need anything too much specific. We just need the good conditions and to accelerate the permitting to attract this investment, to accelerate the energy transition, because with renewables and with the energy communities, we are able to do this energy transition in a just and a fair way. Yes.
Excellent. And I think as rapporteur of the Social Climate Fund, I actually want to speak to you later because there's some very interesting thoughts you have there. And the fact that not only you working on energy communities at a very local level, but also bigger corporations like Exxon are nodding when it comes to this issue of the planning permission procedures. It reinforces our dedication, I think, Manfred, to keep working on this issue. Now, bearing in mind also the time, I have one more procedural remark to make, and that is that we will be discussing the paper tomorrow in more detail, the statement that we prepared on energy, and that there we already have a new language included to also incorporate not only EU countries, but also our partners from, for example, Switzerland and Norway. I think it's important we reach out outside of our bubble, so we'll be doing that tomorrow. But if there are questions, of course, to our panel now, then please use the opportunity. I will take 2. So yeah, I see 3. I cannot refuse the chairman. So I will start with Maria, 1 minute. Then I go to France, and I forgot your name. I'm really sorry. And then I go to Manfred. So Maria. No, Manfred can go last for a change. Maria, take the floor.
Thank you very much. One question to the minister. As far as I know, you had a very ambitious timetable to shut down your coal power stations, but you slowed down that in phase of the crisis on gas, and with a lot of courage, because you still have some lignite that is not very environmental friendly. If you could tell us a little bit about this. I agree with your option, because in Portugal we closed before the war, but we had already very high prices on energy, and I think that we should have waited a little bit on the phasing out. So it's this question. And my second question to the ExxonMobil, we had a strategy on CCUS in our first recovery plan, in the first crisis in 2011, but we were not able to build the CCS, were more CCS than CCU, because a lot of rejection from public. So if you could talk about how you manage for your population around to accept the CCS, we would appreciate. Thank you very much.
La parole est à la France.
I will speak English if
Okay.
you prefer. No problem. Just a question for Bertrand Després, or anybody could answer this question, please. You pointed out the necessity of reducing energy consumption for 10% per year. So my question is it compatible with economic growth, or should we have to choose economic decline? I said it because it is what happened during the pandemic. 10% of energy consumption decrease costed us more than 1 point of GDP. Thank you.
Thank you, and then Manfred Weber will also stick to 1 minute.
Absolutely. So tough vice presidents, I have to say. I want to ask a question first of all to Kostas. You will be next week in the Energies Council Ministers meeting again. Charles Michel was last week in the European Parliament and told us that he's totally happy because on the Council side, European Council, they agreed and everything is on a good way. But you postponed the Ministers meeting again for another week. So tell me about the details. Is there progress going on? Are the Germans moving now finally? Because I think Greece contributed a lot to good solutions on European level, and there was a lack of engagement, I would say, a lack of readiness really to move fast, which was so needed. And the second thing is about having all the business partners with us. It's great to hear, let me say, a lot of people speaking about saving energy. It's great for someone who wants to sell energy, but it's great to have saving energy in the center. Can you give us an advice? You spoke about Japan, for example. Can you give us an advice of how to do it? Because that is obviously now the way how we can do it. The price is already high, so normally the market dynamic must bring us reduction of energy consumption. But can you give us more ideas? Because saving would be great if we can achieve it.
Thank you very much. Maybe I will start on that side now. There was a concrete question about carbon capture and storage and use. Yes. In my country, it's a big issue as well. We need it, yes. But there is problems with gaining public support.
Yes. Maybe I would just like to respond first to President Weber. I think it's very important indeed that the price signal works. Right? We need to balance supply and demand, and we need to increase supplies and we need to reduce demand. I think reduced demand and energy efficiency is critical, but we do not want to be destroying demand in Europe, especially with our industries, right? So I think you're all very aware of that. The high prices right now do have a very negative effect on the long-term viability of European industry, and that's something that we need to be very, very aware of. When it comes to carbon capture and storage, I think there's virtually no expert that would think that we can achieve the 2050 targets without carbon capture and storage. It's absolutely critical. Carbon capture and usage and storage, carbon capture and storage in and of itself, it can help provide also a bridge to green hydrogen through blue hydrogen. Indeed, the barriers that we saw, maybe a decade or a decade and a half ago, were related to, in some way, to public support or lacking public support. But it's also, I think, a function of the technology not being quite ready yet. At the time, we were also very much focused on, for example, trying to find out if we could put carbon capture and storage on coal-fired power stations. And there's generally the support for coal-fired power in Europe was reducing already. So I think, for example, in the Netherlands, a strategic error was made to really focus on carbon capture and storage on 2 brand new coal-fired power stations. We really should be focusing on preserving carbon capture and storage for industry, the hard to decarbonize sectors, which are critical to Europe's future economic prosperity. And I think we need to, as leaders in Europe, we need to be courageous enough to also sell that message to the public. And have that narrative out there, how important CCS is and how safe CCS is as well. We as a company have been working on CCS for over 40 years. We are the world leader. We do 9 million tons of carbon capture and storage already now. We have demonstrated we can do this safely. So I think it's very important for the political leaders of Europe to also stand up and say and point to those successes of the past and say we can do this together, it can be done safely, it is absolutely necessary or we are not going to be able to meet our climate targets. And then on top of that, to get carbon negative, carbon capture and storage will be critical as well. Not just only carbon capture and storage to grab it out of our facilities, but also direct air capture, which we are working on, a technology that needs to be supported, possibly with financial incentives, as is being done in the United States now, to get those technology breakthroughs.
Yeah, let's make sure that we keep the innovation fund big enough in the negotiations that are currently ongoing. Bertrand, your smart savings, can they be combined with growth?
Yeah, and just to be clear, obviously, I'm not asking for, and I'm not arguing for a 10% reduction every year. That will not be bearable. But I think the number is about 10% next year if we want to have a 30% capacity storage, right? So that's an immediate need, right? But long term, it's not 10% every year. And I just want also to put that in perspective, a number which has actually not been noticed so much, but when you look at all the money spent by member states to subsidize energy prices is 670 billion euro, right? So it's almost the same as the recovery plan, right? And obviously, it's not a good incitation to energy efficiency. On the other hand, I understand that there are political reasons for that. And that's, I think, the question, right? How to do smart energy efficiency. And here I would argue, let's look at the return on investment. Again, with digital, in a building like this one, you could implement energy efficiency and have your money back within less than 3 or 4 years, and even more with the current price of energy, compared to residential buildings where, it takes a longer time, right? So I think we need really to be a bit more sensitive to, like how much you could get back your investment. The second point is really about, it's not only about energy efficiency, it's about flexibility, right? Because with renewable, it's going to be very intermittent, so you need to react to how much energy you would have. And again, this is the reason why it has to be about smart home, it has to be about heat pump, it has to be about solar panel, right? So it's a mix of technologies that you should deploy. And I think this is what Fit for 55 encouraged to some extent, right? So again, so being sensitive to return on investment, looking at technology which address both integration of renewable energy and energy saving, they will be my two recommendations at this stage. And just a very final point, I think the industry has already started its kind of dichotomy of the fact not to have the growth depending on its energy consumption, right? So I think that is happening. So we are not talking about science fiction here.
Thank you very much. And then to the Minister, there were two kinds of questions. One was about delaying the phase out of coal, which is something we might need to do in the current situation. And Manfred Weber asked about the gossip in the Energy Ministers' Council. What was the reason for delay? What is going on? Minister, the floor is yours.
First of all, let me say that we have not changed the main target, which is stated in our climate law. That says that by 2028 we should phase out all lignite power plants. So that this target remains the same. The only change that we have made is that we have increased the electricity production from the current operational lignite power plants by indeed almost 100%. So we reduced in the last 10 years, we reduced the lignite generation by 80%. So previous year, only 5% of the electricity that we consumed in Greece came from lignite power plants. That will arrive to 10% this year. And why this? Because we're going to reduce natural gas that we import, and you know what is the target of that, and now the effort. So regarding energy efficiency and energy saving, when we say energy saving, is not to reduce energy which is necessary for the activities, for the human activities. Is to reduce energy or to save energy which is not necessary to be consumed. For example, a lot of energy is consumed in buildings. If we upgrade our buildings, we could save up to 70% of the energy that they consume. For example, in Greece, we have 80% of the building stock has been built before the decade of 80. So we are investing almost 2 billion euros this year just for upgrading energy, for the energy upgrading and the renovation of old buildings, and thus we will save energy which is not necessary to be consumed. And we will also reduce the energy bill for the household. So it's a win-win strategy. On one hand, we're reducing significantly CO2 emissions, and on the other hand, we are reducing also the price, the cost of the energy that the household should pay. Now, what Manfred asked is a very interesting question. For sure, the number one priority after energy security and let's say eliminating the risk of having blackouts is addressing the skyrocketing energy prices to the households and to the businesses. And for sure, all member states have introduced subsidy schemes. In Greece, we have spent until now almost 7 billion euro to subsidize the electricity bills for households and small and medium enterprises. 70% of those money came from the windfall tax mechanism that we have introduced since last July. We have recovered until now more than 2.5 billion euro from the electricity companies, from the electricity producers, and the rest has come from ETS system, and the 30% has come from the state budget. Now, for sure, Europe has been a little bit reluctant in taking decisive measures in order to tackle that problem. Which are the facts? The fact is that currently Europe buys the most expensive natural gas in the world. And there is no reason for this. There is no reason why Europe should buy 2 times, 3 times, 4 times more expensive gas than other continents of the planet. The second is that it has been almost proven that currently the energy exchanges are not functioning. We see TTF going up and down without any fundamental reason. So the decision, the request by 15 member states, including Spain, including Portugal, Greece, and many others, for a new mechanism, for a new dynamic ceiling that would bring down gas prices in Europe, all over Europe, I think it is essential to find a real solution to the problem, without, on the other hand, jeopardizing the security of supply. I can understand the concerns of Germany or Austria for potential gas shortages, but right now is the time to test such a mechanism. And I say this because now we have 96% of the gas storages full of gas, so we have flexibility to adjust the new mechanism and correct the new mechanism if necessary. And next winter is going to be probably much worse than this winter. So now we should decide and set a mechanism to bring down gas prices because I think that many member states won't be able for a long time to still to continue subsidizing and safeguarding affordable prices for the consumers. In Greece, we are absorbing 80% of the bills. Still, the households and the vulnerable households have to pay more expensive prices than before the crisis.
I think here we're really at the heart, so to say, of the discussion that we will also have tomorrow on the basis of the paper and the statement that was put forward. So I think this will be to be continued very much so tomorrow morning in our session. Andrea, the advantage of having the floor last is that you could either jump in on any of the questions or to pass a final message to this audience before we close off. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I will talk about the energy savings, of course. So energy savings, I think we should look at the same time as we look for the energy that should be consumed in a green way and produced in a local way. So in my opinion, regarding to buildings approach, we need to take into account 4 essential aspects. The first one, it's the retrofitting of our buildings to have buildings with more good conditions, with isolated materials, with good thermic comfort. Also, we need to have efficient equipments, and also looking to the energy efficiency, but also to the energy sufficiency, which sometimes we don't pay attention, but it's really important to have the equipment that we need for our needs. And also the energy behaviors, because we need to say the good way to save this energy, and also the technology. So looking to the building, or for the several buildings in environment of Internet of Things, connecting all the energy assets and allocating this consumption in the periods that they need to be used, and in the periods that we have more green energy available.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think despite the short amount of time available, we've had a very rich debate. I want to thank the 4 panelists for being with us, for giving us their insights. We'll continue the discussion on energy tomorrow, of course. Our task, Thanasis, mine and Paulo's, was to catch up the huge gap that there was. We're 6 minutes over, but I think that's good enough. And I guess there will be some remarks about buses and when they leave. Can we still share that with people, when the buses leave and all of that? Because they will be leaving slightly later, I understand. If staff tell me, I'm happy to share it with the room. It was foreseen at 7. Yes. Can you share that with the participants? Yeah, okay, perfect. Then I will wrap up and take them off the stage. Thank you very much again.
What a day. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Paolo. We're on time. That's amazing. Thank you so much. The official proceedings have concluded, but we still have some fun and recreation ahead. We have our dinner coming up, so please, there are buses available for everybody, and we look forward to seeing you at our dinner. Thank you so much. And see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.